Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Meatball Fruit and Save Iron Man at Start. Chapter 1. New York, USA. In a dark alley, there was a dull, poof, sound. This voice, when heard, is produced by a powerful blow to the flesh. Under the dim street lamps, occasionally passing by one or two pedestrians, they heard these sounds, just rushed to speed up their pace, obviously not nosy, but afraid that if they walked slowly, they would implicate themselves. Ah, what should I do? A murmur came from a slightly thin figure, 17 or 18 years old, with black hair and black eyes, wearing casual clothes, and it was noticeable that he was wearing black flesh skin gloves and carrying a large pocket. This man looked fixedly at what was happening in the alley. His face was calm, but his eyes kept flickering, obviously thinking about something. In the alley, several big men were punching and kicking a young man, and one of the big men stopped and breathed a sigh when he was tired, looked up at the 17 or 18-year-old boy, and shouted at the young man with a fierce look in his eyes, "Look what, yellow-skinned monkey, don't hurry up and wait for you to fight together." The young man looked at it expressionlessly for a while, until the big man couldn't help but prepare to move. The young man turned around and walked slowly, and when he walked away, he could hear the "Count you know the yellow-skinned monkey" behind him. The young man here walked expressionlessly, but in his heart he was thinking about whether to rush back to take care of this idle matter. What if I am found out by S.H.I.E.L.D., I will definitely contact me, and I dare not treat them with such disdain as pig's feet in other novels. What if they catch me? Alas, if only I could practice the domineering spirit to the same level as divine sense. This black-haired boy named Chen Yu came here from another Earth, and that Earth has no unnatural forces, so it is much safer than the current Marvel world. This happened 16 years ago, when Chen Yu was watching an anime One Piece that was very popular in his previous life, looked asleep, woke up and inexplicably crossed into this world to become a baby abandoned in front of a house, and there was a note in the swaddling with his name, Chen Yu, written on it in Chinese. Ah, it looks like I'm crossing, but what's wrong with my hand, meatball? Is it true that my obsession with meatballs is too heavy? In the previous life, when Chen Yu looked at One Piece, he felt that the most buried figure was not Anilu, who had the thunder fruit, but the tyrant bear. In his opinion, the flesh ball fruit should be a powerful fruit that is not inferior to the shock fruit. Indeed, the destructive power may not be comparable, but when it comes to singling out, it is simply the nemesis of those strong people who have strong flesh and no special means, such as Carp, Drought Jack, and even the Four Emperors Kaido. He feels that there is no way to single out the bear who should take the meatball fruit. First of all, the ability of this fruit is to bounce off everything, and in the hands of the tyrant bear, even fatigue, pain, which cannot be seen or touched, can pop out of the body. Not to mention Carp, Jack, Kaido, these visible powerful physical attacks. In Chen Yu's opinion, the Four Emperors Kaido and the tyrant bear fight should be such a picture. Kaido frantically attacked the bear, and the bear calmly stretched out his hand to block and rebound. Although the bear may not be able to take Kaido, but at least Kaido can't win the bear no matter what. Really can't ask Kaido where do you want to go to shoot him away, or shoot yourself away. To get back to business, Chen Yu was adopted by a Chinese-American family after crossing. His father's name was Chen Shang, also surnamed Chen, and after seeing the note, he gave Chen Yu this name, which is a truck driver. My mother's name is Wang Yang, and she is an accountant. When the couple saw the baby left at the door, they were going to be sent to an orphanage, and the couple grew up in the Celestial Empire and have a strong sense of belonging to the Celestial Empire, a 5,000-year-old country. The two were childhood sweethearts who came to the United States with their families after the age of 19, and then looked for work and married in the country. Then saved money, just bought a house not long ago, felt that it had stabilized, and picked up Chen Yu when he was ready to have children. When they discussed and were about to drive Chen Yu to the orphanage, they found a note and knew that this was a Chinese child, and for so many years in the United States, they also knew that this child sent to the orphanage may be treated unfairly, and it is not easy to be adopted. Maybe it is raised by the orphanage until the age of 18 and then driven out to live on his own. After thinking about it, I decided to adopt Chen Yu. And 7 years later, he gave birth to a cute sister to Chen Yu. So Chen Yu started his new life in this family, and he quickly integrated into this new environment. Dad and mother called very smoothly, there was no rustiness, everything was so natural. The family is not very rich, but the previous generation of the Celestial Empire loves to save money, which has not changed. And Chen Yu was born with bear's paw-shaped meatballs on his two small hands, and the couple did not dislike it, but his mother Wang Yang still liked it. He often grabbed Chen Yu's small hand to touch the meatballs inside. My sister likes to pinch even more. Thinking of this, Chen Yu couldn't help but twitch out of the corner of his eye. But because he had very few expressions on his face, he couldn't see anything. When Chen Yu was 1 year old, he saw the photo of Tony's duck in the newspaper, as well as the Captain America hero propaganda film that appeared from time to time on TV. Chen Yu already knew that this is the Marvel world, a very dangerous world, so to survive, you must have strength to protect your family. Chen Yu's obsession with bears is indeed too great, so he began to face like a bear when he was very young, expressionless and rarely spoke like a bear, with a very light but magnetic voice. But he doesn't talk much, his mental activity is indeed very active, and all kinds of complaints have not stopped. Chen Yu's hands also have the ability to flesh and fruit like a bear, and because he thinks about it all day, he awakens his domineeringness. HMPH, I won't be as stupid as in the anime to cultivate and see and smell domineering. Chen Yu felt that the cultivation method of blindfolded and beaten like Luffy was too rough. How could he use it after being educated by Chinese civilization? Of course, he should feel that all things achieve the unity of heaven and man. This is the way. The original book also said that seeing and hearing the strongest can listen to all things. Therefore, Chen Yu began to develop meatball fruits and see and smell domineering according to his ideas at the age of 2. Meatball fruits, needless to say, of course, the tricks in the anime must be made out. Play their own teleportation, high-speed air pressure cannon, bounce other people's travel where you want to go, and bounce other people's attacks. The development of the last 3 moves is very smooth. The pressure cannon. Chen Yu once came to an abandoned factory, and for a moment did not make any sound. The wall in the factory was pierced. From this end to that 7 or 8 walls have a bear's paw-shaped palm-sized hole. The destruction can be described as very terrible. Bounce others in Chen Yu to shoot a cute rabbit instantly out of sight, leaving only a fierce whirlwind in place and declared success. As for rebounding other people's attacks, Chen Yu has not practiced, but this trick is very simple. In the case of having a domineering appearance, as long as you sense other people's attacks and then stretch your hand there and wait, you should be able to succeed. The only difficult thing is teleportation. It took Chen Yu a full 10 years to master the strength of playing himself, the place to play, that is, the butt, and the posture of teleporting to the destination. That is, when he was 12 years old, Chen Yu's exercise focus shifted to seeing and hearing domineering. At first, Chen Yu thought that with his domineering appearance, he could easily deal with the battlefield intertwined with firepower after Marvel, but until one winter, Chen Yu was hit by the snow falling on the house, and Chen Yu knew that he was thinking too simply. Domineering is one of the abilities in the manga, One Piece. It makes the 5 senses keen, can detect the breath of surrounding creatures, the domineering of emotional changes, and can also be used to foresee and avoid danger, which is called hard net, in the empty island, which is a kind of mind reading, which can also be said to be the power of listening. As long as the person is still alive, the body can make special sounds, through which the opponent's next move and position can be predicted, and the range can be increased as long as it is tempered. That is to say, seeing that the domineering can dodge bullets at will is not actually able to dodge bullets, but through domineering knowing where the person who shoots the bullet and dodging in advance. As for the original work, Luffy can avoid the attack of the Peacemaker robot. I can only say that it may be that the Peacemaker has life or thought. That's why Chen Yu was hit by snow. This made Chen Yu too scared not to want it. He has read a lot of Marvel Crossing novels, knowing that this kind of world generally has other things in the film and television world. In case there is a world where the Grim Reaper comes, those things are dead things, he can't hide. Does it make him perceive the thoughts of the Grim Reaper? He wasn't sure, so he trembled for a year before he felt overthinking. There are so many accidents. He has been hiding from the sky this year, and Mao has never happened. However, he still decided to find a way to practice the domineering spirit of seeing and hearing the same as the divine sense in the cultivation of immortals, so as to ensure that nothing was lost. Let's talk about the body. Chen Yu's body is very healthy, because he began to practice the ability to eject fatigue pain at the age of 5, and then began to exercise hard, and when he was tired, he used his ability to pop out the fatigue pain, resulting in him now being very healthy and without a little dark injury. He often thinks that maybe this ability to pop fatigue is his golden finger. He also uses his ability to perform subtle massages on his body every day. Massage himself with subtle bounces beyond the speed of sound. Of course, the flesh ball fruit bullet does not need his hand to move. He may control the flesh ball above to bounce. That bounce can exceed the speed of sound at the fastest. Just like in the original book, the bear makes an atmospheric bomb. The hand is stretched there without moving, and the meatball bounces quickly on its own. Under this massage, Chen Yu's body is getting stronger and stronger, but it has only reached the limit of human beings, almost the same level as Captain America Spider-Man, and sure enough, this world is not like the pirate world, can always become stronger. Hey, guys, that yellow-skinned monkey just now, with a timid look, haha, laughed me to death. Chen Yu, who had already walked through the place just now, stopped when he heard his voice behind him, stood there expressionlessly, and began to complain in his heart. TM, was obviously expressionless and indifferent just now. How did he look timid in his eyes? Is it to kill him or to kill them? Quote. Thinking of this, he put down the bag in his hand and began to take off his gloves, thinking while taking them off, the vegetables I bought will not be stolen here. I will go and get it and come back immediately, soon. There is no one around, it should be no problem. Chen Yu slowly put his hands on the sides after taking off his gloves, and his right hand moved slightly, and instantly disappeared in place, leaving only a bag full of things and a small whirlwind. On the other side, after beating the young man almost to the point, they began to fumble on the young man's upper body, obviously looking for money. Facing Chen Yu's sudden appearance, the big men were shocked. The big man who was yelling at Chen Yu just now reacted, took out a knife and shouted at Chen Yu, "Yellow-skinned monkey, are you back again? What do you want to do? How did you show up?" Quote. Chen Yu didn't answer, just walked in front of him in one step and quickly stretched out his hand to him, and a slight sound came out, and the big man disappeared. Only a whirlwind in place proved that he was still here just now. Faced with this strange situation, the big man around and the young man with a bloody face who was beaten all looked at it blankly, unable to react. Their lack of reaction does not mean that Chen Yu did not react. Chen Yu turned his face to look at the other big man. The big man turned around and wanted to run like a violent blow, shouting, "Spare me, I didn't mean it," while running, but it was useless. The big man who was fleeing suddenly saw a figure appear in front of him and waved at him, and then, there was no then, and another big man disappeared. Faced with this strange situation, one of the remaining two white men suddenly knelt down and began to beg for mercy. "Spare me, I will never do bad things anymore. I still have children waiting at home with money. Please go around me," while the other big man took out a knife and put it on the neck of the knocked down youth, and said fiercely, "Don't come here and I'll kill him." Faced with this situation, Chen Yu still did not say a word, walked towards them step by step, paused when he came to the big man who knelt down and kept begging for mercy, said, "You go," and then continued to walk towards the big man who got the neck of the young man. The kneeling big Han Wenyan was shocked, and ran with a rolling belt, saying, thank you," as he ran. When the remaining big man saw such a situation, he didn't dare to really kill him. He also quickly threw the knife and knelt down and began to beg for mercy. Chen Yu walked in front of him and stretched out his hand. This big man was gone, and then said to the young man, "Are you okay?" The young man whose face was beaten with blood came back to his senses and hurriedly said, "I'm fine, thank you for saving me." The young man was frightened by Chen Yu, afraid that he would not say anything and give him a direct look, so he quickly thanked him. "Then I'll go." Chen Yu saw him say this, turned around and prepared to go home. This is the young man who said, "Excuse me, what did you do to them? He didn't dare ask you if you killed them. There is a river 2 kilometers from here, they're there." The young man saw Chen Yu answer, after lowering his hands, put his right hand on the right side of his body, and then disappeared. For a while, he felt that this place was terrible, insisted on getting up and dragged himself home. Chen Yu returned to the place where he had just put the bag, picked up the bag and slowly walked towards the house. His family lives in Queens. The people here are not too rich. His family is the same, a very ordinary family, but he is very rich, but he has not told the family. He feels that suddenly having money will change their family, whether it is better or worse. In short, he does not want to change for the time being. He is ready to let his parents and sister return to China after those plots begin, and as for whether his parents agree or not, he will only say it at that time. If they didn't agree, then Chen Yu could only do his best to protect them. And he also has a plan. He is ready to contact Tony after the Iron Man plot begins. It is best to cooperate with Tony, and then use Tony's power to protect his family. Although I know that it may be very difficult to contact, but everyone who has seen the movie knows that there are still several opportunities to contact him. The first is that he is missing and caught, and if you can rescue him at that time, then you can catch up with him anyway. The second is that Tony was poisoned by palladium elements when Iron Man 2 was in the second place, and if Chen Yu appeared at that time and then told Tony the key to the new element, then whether it was through a transaction or a gratuitous way, you could get involved with Tony. Brother, you're back. Have I bought my favorite fish? As soon as Chen Yu entered the house, a petite figure ran over and hit Chen Yu's body, and then reached into the bag to grope. Of course I bought it, not only the fish, but also the pumpkin, and let my mother make pumpkin cakes for us to eat. Okay, you can eat sweet and sour fish again, and pumpkin pie. The 9-year-old sister jumped happily next to her. Chen Yu's sister is called Chen Wen, born 7 years after Chen Yu came to this family, very sticky to his brother. When he was a child, he had to pinch the meatballs in his hand to sleep, although he grew up, but sometimes he would run to Chen Yu's bed at night to pinch the meatballs to sleep. Ning Chen Yu was speechless. Chen Yu decided that when she turned 10, he would never let her sleep in his bed again. Although she is a younger sister, she can't let her become this habit, and Chen Yu still hopes to find her an honest family to marry in the future. Xiao Yu, take the food when you buy it, and then go to watch TV. I can cook this meal and wait for your father to come back and eat it. Mom's voice came from the kitchen. Chen Yu's mother Wang Yang is 39 years old, and his father Chen Shang is 40 years old. It's not too big yet, so it's still very energetic. Hasn't Dad come back yet? He should be back today after a long run, right? Chen Yu said as he took the dish to the kitchen. Who knows, in short, he has been running long distances for the past 2 years. Your father's stomach is not very good, and he often can't eat on time outside like this. I really want him not to do that job, Wang Yang said as he took the dish out of the bag. Yes, or tell Dad not to run. Come back and live happily as a family, Chen Yu said to his mother, seeing that his mother often worked overtime because of her accountant, and now she actually had white hair. Chen Yu felt distressed. No, my salary alone cannot support you two little naughty. Work for another 10 years. In another 10 years, your father and I can save enough money and then return to live the second half of your life. When the time comes, if you and Wenwen are willing to stay here, if you are not willing to stay here, if you are not willing to go back with us, we will find you an authentic daughter-in-law, and then buy a house. You are looking for a job. Wang Yang said to Chen Yu, still washing the dishes in his hands. What else do you work for 10 years? Didn't Dad say last time that he wanted to open a logistics company by himself? The American logistics company is so bad, it is easy to do it, right? Chen Yu looked at his mother. You think it's so easy to open a company in the United States, especially if we are still Chinese. There is no channel, even if your logistics are faster than others, no one will pull you the goods. Wang Yang sighed next to him. Hearing my mother say this, I didn't say anything, and silently returned to the sofa to watch TV, but I was thinking about things in my heart. I have the money, but just like my mother said, I can't do it without channels, so I can only contact Tony in advance. Single quote. Chen Yu on the sofa looked speechlessly at Chen Wen, who was sitting next to him, holding him in one hand and kneading the meatballs in his palm, and watching the TV SquarePants intently. Just as she was about to say 2 words, the sound of the door opening next to her sounded. It must be Daddy coming back. Chen Wen, who heard the noise, immediately jumped up from the sofa and ran towards the door. As soon as he opened the door, Chen Shang found the petite figure running from the living room. A smile from the heart appeared on his slightly tired face, stretched out his hands and hugged Chen Wen, who rushed over and then turned in a circle. I don't think Daddy has it, my little padded jacket. Thinking about it, I think about my father every day. Chen Wen raised her pink little face and kissed Chen Shang heavily. It's really good, it's worthy of being Daddy's intimate little padded jacket. Chen Shang also kissed Chen Wen's face, put her down, and then walked towards the house. Chen Yu on the sofa in the living room also smiled happily when he saw his father come back, and then ran to the door to put the shoes that his father had just taken off in the shoe cabinet. Hey, good son, have you taken good care of the lady at home? Chen Shang gave him a big hug after seeing Chen Yu, and then asked him with a smile. Of course, Chen Yu's usually expressionless face showed a faint smile. Then Chen Shang walked to the kitchen and spent a few minutes with his mother and the two of them, then came out, sat on the edge of the sofa, smiled at Chen Yu and Chen Wen, the two siblings, and fell asleep for a while. Seeing his father working so hard, he confirmed Chen Yu's idea of contacting Tony in advance, and then helping his father open a company through Tony's relationship. After eating, Chen Yu stopped his mother, who was about to clean up the dishes and chopsticks, and spoke, "Mom and Dad, you all quit your jobs." "What?" "Originally, I was curious about what my son wanted to tell them so seriously, but I didn't expect it to scare the two of them." "Xiao Yu, do you have any ideas?" Chen Shang also asked curiously. He knew that if there were no special circumstances, his son, who had always been relatively stable in his work, would not suddenly say such a thing. "Well, Mom and Dad, in fact, to tell you the truth, I'm rich." Chen Yu also hurriedly said after seeing his father's question. "What, Xiao Yu, where did you get the money? How do we not know?" "Mom and Dad, you heard about it and tell you slowly." In fact, when Chen Yu was 11 years old, he found that there were some things in this world that did not appear in the previous world. Such as when he was 11 years old in 1997, when it should have been the first release of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, and was well received, and in 1998, it was auctioned by American Scholars Press for a high price of $105,000 to get the distribution rights of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in the United States, which opened the way for the Harry Potter series to sweep the world. But Chen Yu waited for a year and did not see Harry Potter appear in the UK, so he began to act. First found a well-written person to coerce and lure him and told him the content of Harry Potter, to help write and publish, and then use the money to buy Stark Industries stock and make some other investments, and never sold the copyright of Harry Potter, because he knew that Harry Potter still has great potential and the subsequent movie books are surrounded by big profits. Through this money, Chen Yu also bought a 3% stake in Stark Industries shares, and no more can be bought by buying these scattered shares, unless he runs to coerce some minority shareholders. But he did not do this, and Henry, who helped him write, also declared that Henry was not the real author, he was only responsible for helping the author publish Harry Potter and handling everything related to Harry Potter. The actual author is an 11-year-old student. And Harry Potter's grade at Hogwarts is also 11 years old, which makes the outside world feel that this is a child's beautiful fantasy of the world, and thus more curious about Harry Potter and this legendary little author. And Chen Yu, the mysterious author, is also known as the most childlike fantasy child. So the annual Harry Potter has now released 6, and the movie has also been filmed to the 4th. And Chen Yu has also accumulated quite a lot of wealth. But Chen Yu did not do more, because he knew that this world was no better than in his previous life, and this world needed great power instead of money. The reason why Tony Stark is strong is not that he is rich, but that he created steel armor through money so that no one dares to mess with him. Just enough money, this is Chen Yu's idea. When Chen Shang and Wang Yang knew everything from Chen Yu, of course, coercion and temptation did not say anything. It's like you've arrived in heaven all at once. His own son is actually so powerful, has earned so much money, and is still a great writer. This is really. Brother, did you make the Harry Potter movie? I love watching it, Hogwarts is amazing, and owls, wands, and. But Xiao Yu, we are not used to it if we quit our jobs and have nothing to do. At this time, Wang Yang, who had recovered from the shock, said to Chen Yu. You can let Dad open a company, and then Mom you help Dad manage the accounts. I have a bit of a relationship with Tony Stark, tomorrow I'll contact him and let him give you business, so Dad you only need to manage people in the future, no need to run to pull goods yourself. Mom can also hire an accountant to settle the accounts, you only need to take care of the overall accounts, Chen Yu said to his parents. If this is really the case, it's not bad, I have a lot of old guys who can be invited with my sports car, they can't stand the exploitation of those vampires, most of us are Chinese, I let them buy some shares, so that they can do it together, they will be much better, and we can help more Chinese in the future. Chen Shang said happily, thinking of the disgusts and white eyes that these Chinese have received over the years, there is also a feeling of another village. Okay, then let's decide like this, I'll go to Tony Stark tomorrow and say, Mom and Dad, you will also do the resignation. At night, both parents slept, and Dad was tired for a day, although he was very excited to hear Chen Yu's good news and drank a few cups, but he also just ran a long distance and was very tired, so he fell asleep on the sofa after a while, and was taken to his parents' bedroom by Chen Yu. And her younger sister Chen Wen also fell asleep after Chen Yu accompanied her to tell her some interesting things about Harry Potter. Chen Yu, who returned to the room, put on the battle uniform he had prepared for future use. A white equilateral trapezoidal black spot with two cute hats with barriers, a black turtleneck leather jacket, a white circle painted in front of the jacket and several articles connected up and down and left and right. This body as a tyrant bear outfit is really difficult to describe. Everyone go to Baidu to search for tyrant bears to see, and you will use this body in the future, and white leather pants with black spots, and finally a pair of black sneakers. After wearing this suit of battle uniform, Chen Yu looked left and right in the mirror, and after finding that it was not bad, he couldn't help but sigh, I really still have too much obsession with the tyrant bear, and then opened the window, and with a movement of his right hand, he disappeared. 10,880 Malibu Street, that's where Tony Stark lives. Chen Yu had known for a long time and had stepped on it before, but this time he went directly to the door of this mansion and walked in with a look at the wide open door. Chen Yu didn't know why the door of Tony's house was always open, and he had stepped on it several times. He knew that he must have been discovered by Jarvis inside when he stepped on the spot, but he didn't care, so he walked directly in. Sir, this is private territory, you can't come in, it's better to leave immediately, otherwise I'll call the police and take your picture to find your address, and then deliver the courtroom flyer to your door. Tony, who had just had a big fight with the supermodel in the magazine, heard Jarvis tell him that the fool who had been here 4 times in the past few years was here again, and this time walked directly through the door. Tony immediately got dressed, got out of bed, and went to the living room. Hello Tony Stark, my name is Chen Yu, I came to trade with you this time. Chen Yu ignored Tony's threat, and came directly to the sofa and slowly sat down. I don't know you and I don't want to work with you. What do you fool want to do when you come to my house a few times? Tony didn't get angry either, but he still said to Chen Yu with unkind eyes. He felt that this person was a bit mysterious, and there was a fearless look that made him dare not mess around, ready to talk to Chen Yu first, and then he was also curious about what this person came here several times but entered his door this time to do. I am a shareholder of your company, I own 3% of Stark Industries, and I am the author of Harry Potter. This is my share information and proof of ownership of Harry Potter, IP. Chen Yu threw a stack of documents onto the table. Jarvis scanned the stack of documents in front of me, Tony said after looking at Chen Yu. As the words fell, a metal composite feeling voice came from the room. Okay sir, I have scanned it. This stack of documents can indeed prove the identity of this gentleman, and I also found this gentleman's information through this gentleman's face. Do you want to see it? Tony stared at Chen Yu, and after finding that he was not surprised, he shook his shoulders and said, Justice, read out his information directly. Yes, sir. Quote. Chen Yu, age 16, Chinese-American, adopted by Chinese-American truck worker Chen Xiong and Chinese-American accountant Wang Yang, and a 9-year-old sister, Chinese-American Chen Wen. Tony listened to the back. All Chen Yu went to what school, when to get vaccinated and so on, knowing that this was an ordinary family, but just like that, he was even more puzzled. What is the matter with such a person coming to him? Although the other party is Stark's shareholder and that mysterious fiction writer. Well, our most childlike and fantasy big boy, what deal are you going to make with me when you come to me? Tony asked after mocking Chen Yu's nickname. My dad is going to do the shipping business, and I would like to ask you to hand over some of the less important transportation business of your company to my dad. As for the remuneration, I'll give you a promise to save you in the future when you're in danger, but you need to get a locator or something on yourself so I can find you then. Chen Yu sat on the sofa and said indifferently. Joke, what danger will I have? Even if I am in danger, what power do you have to save me? When Tony heard Chen Yu's words, he immediately became a little angry, but he still didn't drive Chen Yu out right away. Because the person who dares to walk to his house with such swagger will have nothing. Want to see my power? Then you can see it right away. Chen Yu didn't say anything more when he heard this, and began to slowly take off his black gloves. Suddenly, a pair of hands with bear's paw-shaped meatballs on their palms appeared in front of Tony's eyes. What's the condition of your hand? Genetic modification. Natural variation, Tony said in surprise and then uncertainly. Chen Yu did not speak, slowly stood up, and suddenly appeared in front of Tony after hanging down his hands. What did you do? Jarvis, what did he do? How could it suddenly appear in front of me? Tony was startled, took a step back, and then looked Chen Yu up and down. He touched his ass with the flesh in his hand. Sir, Chen Yu next to him twitched the corner of his eye after hearing Jarvis's description of his teleportation. Although this is true, can you say it a little bit more classically? No matter how Chen Yu complained, Tony suddenly became interested, and asked while looking around Chen Yu, you just touched yourself and teleported. What power does the ball of meat in your hand have? Jarvis, scan him. Sir, I didn't scan anything unusual. The ball of meat on his palm is ordinary flesh and skin, but his body is very strong, and the preliminary judgment should be similar to Captain America. Hearing this, Tony was more interested. The body similar to Captain America, and the magical palm, who are you, and what power does your palm have? Quote, the meatball on my palm can bounce off everything. Just now I used my palm to quickly flick myself so I teleported. Chen Yu thought for a while and said, anyway, his meatball ability is very easy to guess, and there is no solution if he knows it, so he said it calmly but concealed the domineering. You know, there are 2 levels of domineering and domineering without sighting. Wow, bounce everything. But what is so powerful about this? How can you save me? Bounce the enemy to the side. Although Tony thought it was amazing, he didn't think Chen Yu was so powerful. Chen Yu did not speak, waved his hand at Tony's window, only listened to the pop. Tony's bulletproof glass has an extra bear paw-like hole, and then without waiting for Tony to react, he slapped a palm on the floor of Tony's house, and saw that there was a bear paw hole on each floor of Tony's 3-story or thickened floor. After filming, Chen Yu slowly stood up, did not speak, and began to wear gloves. I have important research rooms under my arms, and my supercars, those are limited editions. Jarvis, what did he do just now? And check whether the laboratory and sports car downstairs were damaged. Tony, who reacted after half a day, shouted at Chen Yu, but through the 2 strokes just now, he also knew how powerful Chen Yu was and probably knew how Chen Yu did it, which should be said to be a genius. Sir, he just used the high-speed bounce air to form an impact. Your laboratory is not damaged, but the engine of that red sports car is scrapped. Jarvis still reported to Tony like an honest butler. Is it really popping off the air? No wonder you say that bouncing everything is really the power of infinite possibilities, but you fool actually destroyed my car, and you have to pay me. After listening to Jarvis's report, Tony was stunned, and sure enough, it was similar to what he guessed. But then he felt sorry for his sports car. I'm just proving my worth, and now Mr. Stark, agree to the deal I just said. You know, with my ability, no matter where you are in distress, I can quickly come to your side and save you, Chen Yu said lightly to Tony. HMPH, your ability is very convenient, but if I encounter danger on the other side of the world, it will take you at least a few hours to arrive, right? But I agreed to this deal. Tomorrow I will let my assistant go to your house to discuss business matters with your father, and will not let your father suffer. Tonight I will inject a GPS location alarm into my body. Tomorrow I will let my assistant hand it to you together. Now I will go down to see my car, not send it. Quote. Although Tony is angry that Chen Yu ruined his beloved sports car, Tony is not a fool, such a strong man, or a minority shareholder of Stark Industries. Just give his father a little business to get involved with him. The fool does not agree. When Chen Yu heard Tony say this, he also let go of his heart, stood up and began to take off his gloves again. The corner of Tony's eyes twitched, and after taking off his gloves, his hands drooped, and the person disappeared. Leaving Tony silently thinking for a long time, he returned to hurriedly walk downstairs to see his beloved sports car. Chen Yu, who was walking home, slowly recalled what happened at Tony's house just now, and felt a little puzzled. Didn't you say that Tony Stark's mouth is very cheap? Why didn't he taunt me hard? It's really weird. In fact, he didn't know that Tony Stark was also in contact with someone of his ability for the first time this time, and Tony had just seen the other side of the world to restrain his temper, but Tony also germinated the pursuit of strength in his heart, and also planted the seeds for his later manufacture of steel armor. The night was beautiful. Chen Yu did not go home immediately, but walked slowly, and suddenly felt that he was so lonely in this world. really lonely, in this incredible world. Why do I feel so desolate when I have power, don't I? Single quote. Finally, Chen Yu knew the reason why he felt lonely. Is that really the case? Well, I'm springing, school is 2 weeks away, I'm going to high school, and it's time to find a girlfriend who loves me. Single quote. Thinking like this, Chen Yu is full of expectations for his high school life, at least to find a girlfriend, preferably the kind that can live a lifetime. Chen Yu, who was influenced by Chinese thought, did not like the American view of love everywhere by American men and women, but wanted to find a more conservative and not strong good wife to live his whole life. While walking, Chen Yu's domineering expression suddenly captured a soft voice. The voice sounded young, and the owner of the voice seemed to need help. This shocked Chen Yu, who was thinking about his future wife. Can you save the beauty so quickly and find your wife? Chen Yu felt that he should go over and take a look immediately, so he came to his ass and quickly swept in the direction where the sound was made. Today's Hannah Ju. Hannah is the cute girl with glasses who showed her face in the Amazing Spider-Man 1. Because I don't want the protagonist to be with a very independent beauty like Black Widow or Scarlet Witch, my target for the heroine at the beginning is Hannah, and the cute girlfriend of the heroine in King Habian, the little beauty who was later soaked by the fat friend of the male protagonist, but because of the age, the 17-year-old protagonist can't go to junior high school, right? So I chose Hannah. Since Hannah's name is not mentioned in The Amazing Spider-Man, I use the name of the Hannah actor. She is the heroine. She is very unlucky and disappointed in herself. Since she was a child, she has been very timid and inferior, so she has not made any friends, and she can only follow her good friend Gwen Stacy every day. But Gwen has been the focus of others since she was a child, attracting the attention of male classmates wherever she goes, and Hannah next to Gwen is dispensable. Although Gwen is a good girl and has never looked down on Hannah because of this, but often comforts and encourages Hannah to be more confident, Hannah is still not confident. This also made Hannah's mother very anxious. Hannah's father died early, leaving only her mother and a 13-year-old brother with a family of 3. Today, Gwen called Hannah and said that school was 2 weeks away and that both of them were attending Midtown High School. So Gwen contacted her classmates who were determined to attend Midtown High School to have a party together. Hannah also felt that she couldn't go on like this, not to mention having a boyfriend, how to play with her classmates, so she agreed to Gwen. They had a great time this time, and of course, that didn't include Hannah. Still no one noticed her, except for greeting her classmates when she first arrived at the party. Almost no one took the initiative to talk to her during the party that night. This made Hannah feel very disappointed, but she still silently accompanied her classmates to the end. It was a bit late this time, it's almost 12 o'clock. For a country like the United States, it is still more dangerous to walk alone at night, especially a little girl like Hannah who is very easy to bully at first sight. Walking home alone, Hannah was a little scared. It was the first time she had walked on the street so late. Hannah encouraged herself in her heart as she lowered her head and walked home. Almost 2,000 meters from home, she met a few drunk gangsters. When these gangsters saw Hannah, who was walking home alone with her head down, as if she had seen something funny, they all surrounded them. Hey, little girl, is it too lonely to hang around outside so late? How about the brothers take you to play, it's fun. Quote. Haha, Jones, don't scare people, little sister, come with us, we can go sing K, or we can drive you for a ride, what do you think? The gangsters laughed while teasing Hannah. And Hannah was forced into a corner by them, tightly pinching her clothes, with big bright eyes, looking at the gangsters in front of her in horror through brown glasses. Please let me go home, I want to go home, who will save me? Hannah hid in the corner, whispering a pleading voice to a few gangsters, tears in her eyes could not stop falling, looking pitiful. Her appearance made several gangsters laugh. Just as a few gangsters began to move on Hannah, ready to take Hannah away, a voice sounded next to them. How do you guys want to die? Idiographic period. Seeing a strangely dressed boy suddenly appear next to him staring at the little girl with burning eyes, several gangsters were shocked, but they were not afraid. Joke that we, the 4, 5 strong men, are still afraid of you as a 16-7-year-old child. They were just surprised that there was no boy around just now, and he still made threatening words to them. And after hearing the voice, Hannah immediately felt that this was the best sound in the world, and felt that she was saved, but of course, when she saw Chen Yu standing next to the gangster, she felt a little disappointed and even looked at Chen Yu with worry in her eyes. As soon as Chen Yu appeared to rush to this side, he decided to see what this girl who was about to be saved by him looked like. If it was enchanting bitcha, then he would have sent the gangster to turn around and leave. But if it's a Yanmar that fits his aesthetic and isn't blonde, he's ready to behave, at least gentle comfort, and try to get a phone number or something. As soon as he appeared, he saw Hannah's pitiful appearance, petite figure, terrified eyes, trembling body, not black hair but also dark brown, and black eyes. Seeing Hannah like this, Chen Yu actually had a feeling that he wanted to protect her. That's it, it's this kind of little bird relying on people, the feeling of being submissive, I must behave well, and then get along with this girl, after all, there are few girls on the old beauty side, let go of one less awe. So Chen Yu stared at Hannah and said that to a few gangsters. Why, a little fart kid wants to spoil our good deeds. Hand over the money and get out of here, otherwise, this fool can't talk about it before he finishes talking. Because he found that he was alone, and his companions next to him were gone. Before the frightened gangster could figure out what was going on, he saw the boy come up to him and wave at him. Chen Yu was originally ready to repair these gangsters, but after he saw Hannah, he wanted to quickly communicate with Hannah and comfort Hannah's wounded heart. Especially after seeing Hannah's worried eyes, he decided to quickly solve these annoying gangsters. This good night, there is a wounded girl in front of him, what is not good? So he didn't wait for a few gangsters to say more, took off his gloves and let them disappear at the scene. Then slowly walked towards Hannah and said softly, "It's okay, they were driven away by me, are you okay?" Quote. Well, my gentle voice can probably give it a 98. 2 points away is to remind yourself that you can't be proud. I walked over like this girl little bird is dependent on people, and she is submissive, or will I directly give her a hug and warm her with my heart? When she reacted and asked, I said I fell in love with her at first sight. Well, yes, that's it. Chen Yu thought shamelessly, and then walked to Hannah, whose body was still trembling, and slowly hugged Hannah in his arms. Not to mention, Chen Yu is worthy of being a theorist who thinks about things all day and has a set of theories for everything. This time it really blinded him. Just as Hannah was looking at Chen Yu worriedly, her eyes suddenly widened. I saw that this man who was about the same age as her was so fast that he didn't look like a human appeared in the middle of the gangsters, and then quickly waved his hand a few times, and these gangsters disappeared. Before Hannah could react to what had just happened, she saw the boy walking towards her and gently asking her if she was okay. For a while, thinking that no one usually noticed, she tried hard to integrate into everyone, but failed repeatedly because of low self-esteem and timidity, and tried to accompany her classmates to the party tonight, and this kind of thing happened on the way home. Hannah, who felt that the grievances and helplessness for so long suddenly turned into tears and rushed to her eyes. When the boy in front of her came over and hugged her, Hannah suddenly felt more aggrieved, so instead of resisting, she cried in Chen Yu's arms. Chen Yu looked at such a girl and felt that he really understood puff girls, and he really fell in love with Hannah at first sight, so he hugged Hannah tighter, and kept gently patting Hannah's back to comfort Hannah. I don't know how long it took, Hannah's crying gradually stopped, and her breathing was even. Seeing that Hannah had not left his embrace, Chen Yu felt a little wrong. This kind of girl is usually shy after reacting, right? Why hasn't this girl come out of my arms yet? Am I really too attractive for this girl to bear it? Single quote. Chen Yu, who was cranky, couldn't help but look down, and then he was dumbfounded. This girl actually fell asleep like this. But this is fine, anyway, I don't know where the sister's house is, so I just bring it back first to see if I can see my parents first tomorrow. So Chen Yu carefully picked up Hannah, quickly returned home with his ability, slowly put Hannah on his bed, and then changed his clothes and washed up. After finishing everything, Chen Yu came back in his pajamas and sat on the edge of the bed and saw Hannah who was sleeping, his nose twitching and suddenly feeling that he was not lonely, and he had a very warm feeling. So I decided that I must chase Hannah, and it should be easy to chase Hannah like this. Just as Chen Yu was about to set up a bunk to sleep, Hannah's mobile phone rang and woke up the sleeping Hannah. Hannah, who woke up, looked at everything around her, shook her head cutely, suddenly remembered everything, and then looked at Chen Yu shyly. Chen Yu smiled and pointed to Hannah's pocket, signaling Hannah to answer the phone first. Hannah smiled at Chen Yu embarrassedly, and then picked up the phone. With Chen Yu's hearing, of course, he could hear their conversation, so he quickly thought about how to chase Hannah into his hand, and listened to Chen Yu smile and make a decision. Hey, Mom. Well, Hannah, why haven't you come back so late? Oh, I'm in the same school now, I'll be right back. Fellow scholars, Gwen's house. It's so late or you sleep over there, and it's not safe to come back so late. Quote. No, I'm not at Gwen's house, I'm at another classmate's house. What other classmates do you have? Did you have a boyfriend? Thank goodness that you can finally get a boyfriend, so you can rest over there, don't rush back, see their family tomorrow, don't be rude, you know. No, Mom, it's not my boyfriend, it's an ordinary friend's house, Hannah hurriedly retorted when she heard her mother's misunderstanding, and looked at Chen Yu carefully. Hearing this, Chen Yu simply smiled in his heart. It turns out that she is still a peerless good girl who is not sociable, and it is generally ugly if she is not sociable, but Hannah is still very good looking. Is the aesthetic of the American side different from mine? Haha, it's really not the easiest, only easier. Thinking of this, Chen Yu stood up and walked over, took the mobile phone and said to the phone, Hey, Auntie. I'm Hannah's boyfriend, yes, today she's spending the night at my house, and I'll drop Hannah back after dinner at my house at noon tomorrow. Quote. Ooh, well, you're Hannah's boyfriend. Great, Hannah has been timid and unconfident since she was a child, trouble you to take good care of her, she is a kind and good girl. When Hannah's mother heard that Hannah had really found a boyfriend, she was immediately happy. Don't worry, Auntie, when I have time, I will visit you, then that's it, bye. After hanging up the phone, Chen Yu took the phone and looked at Hannah with a smile. And Hannah still looked at Chen Yu with an incredible expression, and it took half a day to react. Shyly wanted to get under the bed. Seeing Hannah's cute reaction, Chen Yu slowly walked to Hannah's side and said to Hannah, My name is Chen Yu, I am Chinese, I just graduated from junior high school, how about you? Quote. Hannah saw Chen Yu asking her, and after a while, she said, My name is Hannah, Hannah Max, I also just graduated from junior high school, why did you lie to my mother like this just now? Quote. Seeing that Hannah slowly calmed down, Chen Yu was also ready to strike while the iron was hot, and directly chased Hannah tonight, so he said, I didn't lie to your mother, I just saw you and liked you, how about it, can I be my girlfriend? Speaking of this, Chen Yu looked at Hannah with a burning look, success or failure in this move, although the iron was struck while it was hot. But Chen Yu is still not very optimistic about the success rate, after all, people don't know him, what if he is a bad person, what if he likes to bully his girlfriend? There should still be ideas like these. But Chen Yu was in no hurry, and the feeling of just going from lonely to warm made him unable to wait at all, so he had such a direct confession. Maybe that's my weakness that I've never been in a relationship. I value Hannah too much now, what if someone threatens me with Hannah in the future? Single quote. Not mentioning what Chen Yu thought, Hannah looked at Chen Yu who was staring at him blankly at this time. After a long time, he lowered his head and gently said, although the voice was small, but Chen Yu was anyone, how could he not hear it, so Chen Yu, who was overjoyed, instantly went over and hugged Hannah tightly. This man, who has never been in love in his 2 lives, is really overwhelmed at this time. Hannah, who was hugged, did not struggle, but also slowly and gently hugged Chen Yu, and only felt joy in her heart. Is that what it's like to have a boyfriend? That's nice. They hugged each other in bed and slowly slept, and the night was destined to be warm and unforgettable. In the morning, Chen Yu woke up from the friction of Hannah's face. When I just woke up, I saw Hannah's face still sleeping against his, probably rubbing twice from time to time because of comfort. Both hands were holding Chen Yu, although both of them were wearing clothes, but Chen Yu, who had never been in love, couldn't help but look at Hannah obsessively for a while, immersed in this feeling of happiness. After a while, Hannah frowned and opened her eyes, and couldn't help but stretch her waist, stretching halfway through and seeing Chen Yu next to her looking at her. Remembering what happened last night, she hurriedly burrowed her head into the quilt, and only after a while leaned out to look at Chen Yu. Chen Yu saw that Hannah was not shy when he saw it, smiled boldly at Hannah, then moved to Hannah's side, hugged Hannah, and put the one in front of Hannah and stared at Hannah and said, From today you will be my girlfriend, I will protect you well and never bully you. Then he kissed Hannah gently. Seeing Chen Yu's gentle appearance, Hannah was immediately melted by this gentleness, and also gently kissed Chen Yu, and then hugged Chen Yu tightly. The two of them felt like this was the first good feeling for them. Loneliness is also getting farther and farther away from Chen Yu. You also graduated from junior high school, and school starts in 2 weeks. Where to go to high school? I will be with you. Chen Yu, who just enjoyed the feeling of being in love, did not want to separate from Hannah at all, and decided to go to a high school with Hannah even if he was looking for a relationship. I'm going to Midtown High School. I have already signed up for it now. If you are not Midtown High School, then I can't change it now, but I can go to you every day. Hannah also wants to be with Chen Yu every day. As soon as he heard that Hannah was Chen Yu of Midtown High School, he was relieved, because he knew that Spider-Man would read Midtown High School, so he applied for Midtown High School, and now Chen Yu, who knows that he does not have to separate from Hannah, is very happy and can't help but kiss Hannah again. I'm also going to Midtown High School. It's really good, so that we don't have to separate, and then we will show affection in school and envy those single dogs, haha. Quote. Really? Great, but show affection or something, it's too high profile. Let's just be fine. By the way, are we going to see your parents later? Hannah was pleasantly surprised to hear that Chen Yu was also in Midtown High School, and she was also happy that she didn't have to separate from Chen Yu. But thinking of waiting to see Chen Yu's parents, he began to get nervous again. Chen Yu, who felt Hannah's nervousness, kissed her on the forehead before saying, "Don't be nervous, my parents are very good, and I also have a sister, who is also very well behaved. When you eat next, you can do as usual." Quote. Hearing Chen Yu say this, although Hannah was still a little nervous, she also slowly let go of her heart, and then hugged each other with Chen Yu like this, slowly chatting about some previous things between the two and getting to know each other's family. Hannah's family is simple, her mother and brother. Chen Yu is also very relieved about this simple family. Brother, get up soon, you lazy worm, hurry up and play with me." Just when Chen Yu and Hannah were talking about Minong, a small figure outside quickly ran in, and without looking at anyone, he threw himself on Chen Yu's bed and saw Chen Yu full of black lines. He had been tormented by this way of waking up for years. Also, brother, who is she? Chen Wen, who threw herself on Chen Yu's bed, found that there was a big sister she didn't know at home, and asked with a dumbfounded look. "This is Hannah, my brother's girlfriend." "Hannah, this is my sister, Chen Wen." Looking at Chen Wen's stupid and cute appearance, Chen Yu replied helplessly, and then introduced her sister to Hannah. "Hello Wenwen, I'm Hannah, your brother's girlfriend," Hannah said to Wenwen nervously. My brother's girlfriend. Brother, when did you have a girlfriend? How did I not know?" Chen Wen said a little unresponsively. "Brother has to tell you everything first. Hannah, get up, let's go down and meet my parents." Chen Yu said to Hannah after saying something to Chen Wen. Then he and Hannah got up to wash, during which Chen Wen asked questions next to her. After washing, Chen Yu and Hannah and Chen Wen went down to the attic together and came to the living room. At this time Chen Shang and Wang Yang were drinking tea while watching TV on the sofa, and they were a little stunned when they saw the three of them coming down together. How could there be more people? "Dad, Mom, this is my girlfriend Hannah. I couldn't sleep a little last night, so I quietly let Hannah come over." Chen Yu took Hannah to the sofa and introduced the two. The two looked at the sudden addition of Hannah and were very surprised, but they reacted quickly. Mother Wang Yang pulled Hannah to ask questions about the East, and Chen Wen interjected from time to time next to her. After Chen Yu got himself a cup of tea, he sat down with Chen Shang, and raised his head to show a smug expression to Chen Shang. Chen Shang was a little speechless after seeing it, but he was also pleased to give Chen Yu a thumbs up and sighed that the child had finally grown up and had a girlfriend. While the family was happy, Hannah gradually lost her nervousness and said that when Wang Yang was waiting to help with cooking, there was a knock on the door of the house. Chen Shang felt strange but immediately ran to open the door, but Chen Yu guessed that the person who came should be Tony Stark's person. Sure enough, as soon as the door opened, a beautiful woman with blonde hair tied up behind her head and dressed in a capable professional dress appeared in front of Chen Yu's family, followed by two men in suits like bodyguards. Pepper Potts, the closest person to Tony's life. She illuminated his life. Protect him, clean up the mess for him, and keep his life organized. Tony is a genius who can invent all kinds of things, but he is an idiot in life, so Pepper must help him take care of everything and put his messy life in order. Pepper received a strange order from Tony yesterday, asking her to go to Tony's house to get something to deliver to a 17-year-old high school student named Chen Yu, and also asked her to give some less important logistics business to Chen Yu's father, saying that Chen Yu's father was going to open a company for her to negotiate. Pepper thought it was strange but didn't ask much. He knew Tony Stark. Tony didn't take the initiative to tell her. She never asked more, she just needed to help Tony get this done. This is also the reason why she has been able to follow Tony for so many years and is deeply trusted by Tony. When Chen Xiang was surprised who this woman was after opening the door, Pepper spoke. Who is Chen Yu? I'm Tony Stark's assistant. I'm here to hand you something and talk to your father about the logistics business. Quote. Chen Yu, who had already guessed, came out after hearing Pepper's words and said, I am Chen Yu, what about Tony? Give it to me. Pepper looked at the 17-year-old boy in front of him, not understanding what he had to do with Tony, but he still politely handed Chen Yu a black metal plate the size of a mobile phone. And through observation, he determined that the person who opened the door just now was Chen Yu's father and said, You are Chen Yu's father Chen Xiang, you should be opening a logistics company, and we can help you handle all the procedures of the company that Tony authorized me to open for you. Quote. Although he knew that his son was a big writer and a rich man, and he knew the super rich Tony Stark, he didn't expect that the other party would really send someone to discuss the company's affairs with him so soon, so he quickly brought Pepper in. Wang Yang also quickly served them some drinks, and then walked away with Chen Wen, who saw them discussing these things and hugged Hannah and whispered to her next to her. Hannah was surprised to know that the other party was from Stark Industries, but she knew the famous playboy. So he quietly asked Chen Yu, How does your family know Tony Stark? Quote. Chen Yu knew that Hannah was curious, so he said, My dad doesn't know Tony, I do, and Tony and I are a cooperative relationship. Looking at the surprised Hannah, Chen Yu told Hannah that he was the author of Harry Potter and the shareholder of Stark Industries. Hannah's face was shocked. Hannah, who came back to her senses, hurriedly asked, I almost forgot, what happened to those hooligans last night? And how did you do it? And what about the bear's paw-shaped meatballs on your hands? Quote. Chen Yu knew that Hannah would recall it sooner or later, and he was not prepared to hide it, so he said to her, I am a superpower, and those gangsters were brought to the river in the west by me, and it will be fine. The meatballs in my hands are the source of my strength. How do you dislike me for having meatballs in my hands? Chen Yu knew that Hannah would not dislike him, and asked like this on purpose. Sure enough, as soon as Hannah heard this, she immediately hugged Chen Yu and said, How come, how can I dislike you, and the meatball in your hand is very cute, it feels soft to the touch, I like it very much. Saying that, he also reached over and touched the meatball on Chen Yu's hand. Seeing Hannah like this, Chen Yu was finally relieved, although he knew that it should not be a big problem to have bear's paw-shaped meatballs on his hands, but he was inevitably worried. After all, he wore gloves because this palm was looked down upon by other children when he was a child. Hannah just learned that Chen Yu was so powerful and began to worry again, and couldn't help but hold Chen Yu and asked in a low voice, Chen Yu, you are so powerful, I'm just an ordinary girl, will you dislike me if you have a better girl in the future? After speaking, Hannah lowered her head and did not dare to look at Chen Yu. Fool, you don't understand us people, in our opinion, any love that does not aim to get married is a hooligan. Do you think I look like a rogue? Don't worry, as long as you don't leave me, I will live with you for the rest of my life. Quote. Chen Yu knew Hannah's worries, but he had already thought about it. The Marvel Universe was full of beautiful women. What invisible women, Black Widows, Scarlet Witches, Thor's girlfriend Jane, Spider-Man's girlfriend Gwen, and even Pepper in front of him, but they were not his dishes. What Chen Yu wants is a girl like Hannah, who is ordinary and wholeheartedly devoted to Chen Yu, and will be married and taught in the future. Do you expect Black Widow to cook and mop the floor for you at home? Maybe if you pull out your phone, she thinks you're going to pull out a gun. Of course, Chen Yu is not bent on a quiet life, he also wants a little exciting feeling, so he has long thought about how to live his life. The Avengers are definitely going to join, after all, following them stimulates, and the Prophet is basically not in danger of his life, and he can also protect his family through their forces. After all, his ability will definitely be exposed, so Shield side and Hydra side he must choose one to join. As for why not choose Hydra? Don't look at the movie where the Avengers were miserable enough by Hydra, but Chen Yu dared to say that Hydra still felt that the Avengers made them worse. So Chen Yu is ready to join the Avengers at the right time, and as for when, Tony now knows of his existence, and when he is in danger, he will definitely think that his power will come to invite him. With Tony's invitation to join the Avengers, everything seemed natural. Then if you want to find excitement, go to fight. When you are tired, return to his and Hannah's home, enjoy Hannah's tenderness and the warmth of home, just like Avengers I's Hawkeye, and not join S.H.I.E.L.D., only join the Avenger, which is freer than Hawkeye. The only thing that is not as good as Hawkeye is that Hawkeye hides his family well, and Chen Yu does not have this ability, so he must be careful to protect his family. When Chen Yu and Hannah were whispering next to each other, Chen Xiang and Pepper were almost talking, and after refusing Chen Zheng's invitation for lunch, they took the car back to Tony to return to his life. Then Wang Yang began to cook, Hannah ran to help, and even Chen Wen followed to the kitchen to make trouble. Leaving Chen Yu's father and son on the sofa, chatting without a match, waiting for the meal. A kind and beautiful lunch was quickly finished, and Chen Xiang and Wang Yang were also very satisfied with Hannah, and even the naughty Chen Wen was full of praise for her sister-in-law who was gentle and kind. After dinner, Chen Yu prepared to send Hannah home to meet Hannah's mother and brother by the way. After cleaning up the dishes and chopsticks, Wang Yang knew that Chen Yu was going to meet the possible future in-laws, and actively prepared some gifts for Chen Yu, and then told Chen Yu to pay attention to safety and be polite when he arrived at someone's house, and watched Chen Yu and Hannah leave. Took a taxi and drove to Hannah's house, and on the way Hannah snuggled up next to Chen Yu in a very happy look. Until now, Hannah still feels that from last night to now, like a dream, she has no friends, she has made a gentle, handsome and rich boyfriend, and this boyfriend still falls in love with her with the purpose of marrying her. As soon as she thought of this, the smile on Hannah's face couldn't be hidden, and Chen Yu next to her was also very proud. After all, it is also a man's ability to make women feel happy, isn't it? It's only the final physical conquest. After all, if you don't have a good life, you may break up your relationship. However, with my human body and very competitive brothers, there is no problem at all. There should not be too many people in this world who are stronger than me. Single quote. Chen Yu thought shamelessly in the car, his face unconsciously showed a slightly lewd smile, and Hannah next to him gave him a roll of his eyes. Chen Yu, who saw the email halfway through the car, stopped the car, pulled Hannah out of the car in Hannah's puzzled eyes, and then went to the mall to buy a new mobile phone for himself and Hannah, and also bought a mobile phone and a new game console for Hannah's brother. Hannah didn't want it. After all, the United States generally doesn't accept boyfriends if they are not married, but after Chen Yu said that he was not a boyfriend and girlfriend, but an unmarried couple, he agreed. There's not much to say about the situation at Hannah's house. Hannah's mother is very enthusiastic. Really, the mother-in-law looks at her son-in-law. The more she looks at it, the more pleasant it is. That is, Hannah's younger brother is still very dissatisfied with Chen Yu at first, thinking that he robbed his sister, but under Chen Yu's gift offensive, he soon began to become an obedient good child. After eating at Hannah's house, after saying goodbye to Hannah and her enthusiastic mother, Chen Yu returned home. Chen Yu, who couldn't bear to go to Hannah after staying at home for 2 hours, began to text Hannah, and as a result, Hannah also wanted Chen Yu, and the two hit it off and went shopping on Broadway. After meeting, the two first hugged affectionately on the street, as if they had been separated for a long time. Pedestrians on the street cast curious eyes on them. Then the two strolled east, west, bought some interesting little things, and found a cafe to sit down when they got tired. The two drank coffee and chatted, and Hannah looked at the boy in front of her, knowing that she might not be able to live without him for the rest of her life. I couldn't help but laugh from the bottom of my heart. When Chen Yu saw Hannah like this, he also guessed what she was thinking, and also looked at her with a smile, and for a while a dazzling atmosphere rose between the two, and the hands under the table were slowly pulled together. Just when the two enjoyed this atmosphere with each other, with a bang, the window next to the two suddenly exploded, a fierce wind came to the surface, and a huge figure smashed into the bar not far from the two, and the waiter who picked up the customers at the bar was smashed into the wall because he had no time to dodge. And when the window just burst, Chen Yu was shocked in his heart, careless, seeing that the domineering color obviously sensed that someone was fighting over there, but I didn't react because I was immersed in love. Thinking of this, Chen Yu threw down Hannah on the opposite side in front, and then held Hannah under him and began to quickly take off his gloves. As soon as Chen Yu, who had just taken off his gloves, he felt a life form fly in when he saw the domineering color, and quickly hugged Hannah tightly and quickly slapped it at himself and disappeared. On a street 2,000 meters away from the cafe just now, Chen Yu appeared here with Hannah in his arms. Hannah suddenly appeared here after seeing that she had just been pounced by Chen Yu, and she let out an "ah" sound in fright. Then he hugged Chen Yu tightly. At this time, Chen Yu saw that it was safe, so he quickly stopped a taxi next to him and said to Hannah, "You go back first, I will follow you immediately and wait for you at your door." Quote. Hannah saw that Chen Yu was leaving, knowing that he was going back to the place just now, afraid that Chen Yu was in danger, and quickly grabbed Chen Yu nervously. "Don't go back, let's go together." "Okay, I'm so scared, you accompany me." Quote. Hearing Hannah say this, Chen Yu hugged Hannah and kissed and comforted. "Well, the casualties are too heavy, and I know the details of that monster. I will come back when I get him away. I must have arrived at your house before you can rest assured." Quote. Hearing Chen Yu's words, Hannah knew that Chen Yu must go, and could only say to Chen Yu affectionately, "You must wait for me at my door, I want to see you soon. You know, I can't do it without you." With that, Hannah got into the car, and then the taxi driver kicked the gas pedal and drove the car away. Hannah's words let Chen Yu know Hannah's vulnerability and attachment to him. So he decided that even for Hannah, he had to be careful. After all, the monster just now, if Chen Yu was not mistaken, should be Hulk. Chen Yu is not afraid of the Hulk. After all, the last thing that the meatball fruit is afraid of is this kind of person who is physically powerful but has no other special abilities. But if you are accidentally hit by the Hulk, it is a terrible thing, and it is best not to dodge every attack of the Hulk, but to use meatballs to resist the best. After all, if you dodge, you must also consider such a thing as fist style. Chen Yu remembers that when Hulk and Abomination fought, Hulk's girlfriend finally caught fire, and Hulk slapped his hands to produce a powerful wind to extinguish the fire. But these are not what Chen Yu is most worried about. After all, with Chen Yu who has seen and heard the domineering body, the Hulk and Abomination attacks should be able to easily see through. Chen Yu was most worried about General Ross. Watching the movie, you know that this general is too obsessed with the Hulk. If Chen Yu forcibly intervened to beat Hulk and Abomination to be recognized by Ross, then the other party would definitely anger him, the person who intervened. So Chen Yu decided to find a place where masks were sold, get a mask, and then go home and put on his combat uniform. Chen Yu, who thought of it, immediately began to frantically move around the street looking for masks, and after a while, he really found a store that sold Japanese-style ghost masks, went in and quickly bought a Japanese monster mask, and as soon as he left the store, he quickly returned home and began to wear combat uniforms. While wearing it, I thought, I hope it's okay over there, my first real fight must be solved cleanly. Haha, Hulk, are you ready to be slapped away by me? Well, just shoot the Hulk and Abomination into the deserts of the American West and let them duel. After wearing the battle uniform, Chen Yu slapped at himself again and quickly moved towards the place where the Hulk was standing. By the time Chen Yu arrived, the Hulk was fighting with Abomination, and General Ross's plane had crashed, and the domineering Ross and her slender daughter Betty looked at the two monsters fighting together not far away with a worried face. This is when several people found that Chen Yu, who suddenly appeared, stayed there for a while. The first thing that reacted was hatred, and while Hulk was still looking at Chen Yu who suddenly appeared, he kicked Hulk and ran towards Chen Yu, and when he ran in front of him, he punched Chen Yu. Be careful. Seeing that Chen Yu was about to be hit, Betty, out of kindness, shouted like Chen Yu to remind Chen Yu. And Hulk, who had just gotten up, shook his head twice and stared at this side deadly. Facing this mountain of punches, Chen Yu sensed that the landing point of this punch was on his face through seeing and smelling the domineering color, and quickly stretched out his right hand to block his face. With a pop, in the incredulous gazes of several people, he quickly shot backwards as if he had been hit by his own fist, knocking down a few walls before slowly getting up and staring at Chen Yu. After a while, seeing that Hulk was still staring at Chen Yu without wanting to go over to tempt, the hatred was amplified because his emotions were amplified, and finally roared and attacked Chen Yu. At this time, people around slowly ran over to watch. The abomination of being shot away again slowly climbed up again, and this time he did not shoot back immediately, but stared at Chen Yu, as if thinking about something. After thinking for a while, he hit Chen Yu again unwillingly, and the Hulk next to him did not care about hatred this time, but also attacked Chen Yu like hatred, which made Chen Yu a little puzzled. In fact, Chen Yu didn't know that Hulk's wisdom was not too high, but there were also, seeing Chen Yu hit and hate several times, he felt that Chen Yu was very powerful, so he decided to clean up Chen Yu first. In the dull eyes of the onlookers, Hulk and Abomination kept attacking Chen Yu and then being sent flying, and after getting up, they attacked Chen Yu again, and Chen Yu was only defensive and did not take the initiative to attack. Chen Yu does not attack because although his attack power is also very powerful, the pressure cannon is very powerful, and there is also a giant bear impact that can compress a large amount of air to make a super bomb. However, through the understanding of the past life movie, Chen Yu knew that these attacks were probably of little use to the two monsters of Hulk and Abomination, so he did not take the initiative to attack. After a while, Chen Yu, who was a little impatient in the face of the two indefatigable monsters, decided to make a move. And I thought excitedly, finally this moment, I have been waiting for the Hulk since I came to this world, waiting to say this to him, pretending that the B moment has finally come. There are more and more people around. I saw that Chen Yu, who had never opened his mouth with a mask as soon as he came out, began to slowly walk forward in the direction where the two monsters were flown after hitting Hulk and Abomination again, and when the two monsters stood up again, Chen Yu spoke to the Hulk. "Where would you like to go when you travel?" At this time, Chen Yu couldn't help but say this sentence that he had wanted to say for a long time, but it was indeed Hulk's roar that answered him. The Hulk roared. Hulk once again rushed towards Chen Yu, but Chen Yu raised his hand this time, making the Abomination that was also ready to rush up on the side stop. Abomination is higher than Hulk's wisdom, and he can even speak, and when he saw a defensive Chen Yu suddenly moved, he decided to see what Chen Yu was going to do before speaking. When Hulk rushed to Chen Yu and was about to punch Chen Yu's raised hand quickly aimed at Hulk and slapped it heavily. In the moment he was photographed, the Hulk disappeared, leaving only a whirlwind in place to prove that the Hulk was still here just now. The abhorrence at seeing this scene in General Ross's eyes widened in disbelief, and the onlookers also let out an incredible scream. Only Betty first froze for a while, and then ran over a little crazy and roared at Chen Yu excitedly, "Bruce, what did you do to Bruce? Where did he go?" Quote. In the face of Betty's rebuke, Chen Yu was silent for 2 seconds before answering, and I photographed him in the desert 280 kilometers south of Las Vegas in the west. Chen Yu can control the place where people are photographed away as early as the age of 15, but the farther the error, the greater the error, and the farthest error of Chen Yu in the United States will not exceed 200 meters. Chen Yu, who had just finished answering, didn't have time to say anything else, when he saw that Abomination was actually preparing to escape, so his ability was activated, and he instantly moved to Abomination and waved his hand fiercely, and said in his mouth, "Go and share the victory with the Hulk, isn't this what you want?" As for whether the Hulk could win, Chen Yu never doubted it. Nima, how can Abomination beat the Hulk, who is a perverted monster that is stronger and can grow infinitely? Chen Yu, who took away the hatred, looked at Broadway, which had been destroyed for 2 entire streets, silently mourned the dead for 2 seconds and then slapped away at himself. Seeing Chen Yu leave, the surrounding onlookers suddenly exploded. What are those 2 monsters? Do you still need to ask? It must be something researched by the military, and I didn't see a general like that. What about the man in the bear costume with the mask? I don't know about this, it could be a superhero, Superman or something. General Ross on the side became more and more gloomy after hearing the discussion of the crowd next to him. However, he was obsessed with the Hulk, and he immediately contacted someone to send a plane to pick him up, and then prepared to rush to Las Vegas immediately. And left Betty before she could react. He didn't want Betty to go and intercede with him to let Hulk go. After getting Hulk and the hated Chen Yu back home to change back into the clothes they wore before shopping, he turned on the ability to move to Hannah's house, but he remembered that he had just promised Hannah to wait for her at her door. When he arrived at Hannah's door, Chen Yu, who found that Hannah had not yet arrived, began to look left and right bored. At this moment, The black metal plate that Tony gave him rang. Chen Yu took out the metal plate from his pocket and looked at it, and found that there was a button on it, so he pressed it, and suddenly Tony Stark's voice came from inside. "Hey, our baby bear, I've seen your heroism in fighting 2 monsters, and you really bounced those 2 monsters to Las Vegas with your ability to bounce everything. Can you actually do this level? How far can you get a person? Will the person who is ejected be harmed?" Quote. In the face of Tony's machine gun-like question, Chen Yu said that he was a little confused, but since he wanted to hold Tony's leg, he still patiently answered Tony's question. "Ah, yes, the distance I bounce a person is the range of the Earth's hemisphere. Ordinary people will definitely get hurt, unless I deliberately reduce the speed and altitude of the flight that I bounce into the air and let people fall into the water. Otherwise, ordinary people will definitely not be able to stand it. Those 2 big guys are different, their bodies are very strong, and it is no problem to fly and fall. This way, what a convenient ability. What about you, will you get hurt? Your body is similar to Captain America, so you should be fine, right?" Quote. Of course, how else would I have developed a move to teleport myself? How about my trade with yours? You didn't lose money, right? I'm so strong. Cut, you are a baby bear, nothing powerful. By the way, why are there many strong people like you and those 2 monsters in the world? I don't know, but there should be some, so if you are an ordinary person, it is not enough, no matter how rich you are, you should arm yourself, right? Chen Yu intends to guide Tony to develop armor so that Tony will become strong, and then he will become Chen Yu's solid ally. Chen Yu does not want his ally to be a waste without the power of chickens. I know, I have some ideas, but not yet. I'm going to Afghanistan in 2 months to demonstrate my weapons, and I'll find a way to arm myself after that, right? Okay, it's okay to hang up, Tony said and hung up. Ah, is it going to start in 2 months? Is Iron Man coming out after the Hulk? Then the world is about to be in chaos. Come on, more than 10 years of continuous development and training. I already have the ability to protect myself. Let me write my own legend with the world's top group of people. Single quote. Just when Chen Yu was thinking about it, a car in the distance drove up and stopped in front of him. The door opened, and Hannah rushed over and hugged Chen Yu tightly after coming out of the car, and kept saying in his mouth, "Thank goodness you're okay. I've been thinking about what I'll do if something happens to you." As she spoke, Hannah burst into tears. Women are really made of water, so easy to cry. Chen Yu thought, but Chen Yu did not hate Hannah crying for worrying about herself, but felt very warm. Chen Yu gently patted Hannah's back and said, "How can I have something? I am certain of it. If I am not sure that I will not go, I promise you here." "Well, if I promise, I will do it." Under Chen Yu's assurance, Hannah slowly stopped crying, wiped her tears and said to Chen Yu, "You wait for me, I will come out immediately," and then run into the house. After 2 minutes, Hannah came out, and then said to Chen Yu with a red face, "I went to live at your house today. I have almost told my mother." Quote. As soon as Chen Yu heard it, he understood. God, open your eyes, it seems that my 2 virgins are coming to an end, and I must behave well. Let this gentle and kind girl in front of me fall completely in love with me from both physical and mental aspects. What Chen Yu didn't know was that in fact, Hannah was completely in love with Chen Yu and couldn't do without him. Chapter 11. When the 2 returned home holding hands, it was late, and her sister Chen Wen had already slept. Chen Yu's parents were also ready to sleep. I was a little surprised to see Chen Yu and Hannah come back together, but I didn't say anything. It's just that Mother Wang Yang told Chen Yu not to bully Hannah, and Father Chen Shang also showed Chen Yu a man's expression and went to sleep. The 2 returned to Chen Yu's room, and Hannah's face was still red until this time. Until now, Hannah couldn't believe that she was so bold. But Hannah doesn't regret it, she can't do without Chen Yu. Chen Yu went to take a shower first, leaving Hannah sitting on the edge of the bed and playing with a red face. Chen Yu, who came back from taking a bath, felt a little funny. Then Hannah went to take a bath, and Chen Yu was in bed thinking about today's events. There is no doubt that today's battle has made Chen Yu more confident. Hulk, this is a well-known existence in the Marvel Universe. And it is such an existence that is played by Chen Yu and applauded today. It also made Chen Yu understand his meatball ability better. Simply put, there is no upper limit to the rebound. In the past, Chen Yu had always been vaguely worried about his flash ball ability, afraid that if the enemy's attack exceeded the upper limit of the meatball's rebound, he would be injured. But after today, Chen Yu lost this worry. Hulk and Abomination attacked Chen Yu, resisted almost without feeling, and did not feel any powerful power at all. And the people in the Marvel Universe who exceed the power of the Hulk do not say no, but they are also limited. Now it's all that remains to block Thor's quake. In the past, watching movies, it was said that Mjolnir was refined using materials extracted from the core of a star that was about to be annihilated. It's scary to pee when you listen to it, Chen Yu thought boredly. If it weren't for the fact that the Hulk was smashed by Mjolnir several times in the movie and was fine, and even the American team could block Mjolnir unscathed, Chen Yu really didn't dare to block it. Although the American team blocked the hammer, most likely relying on his vibranium shield. But as the hammer made of a star core, do you want a shield to block it? And looking at the trailer of Thor 3 later, the hammer seems to have been crushed by a woman to feed. Chen Yu felt that he might have seen a fake hammer. So get ready to use this hammer to try your meatball ability. After a while, Hannah came out. Wrapped in a bath towel, covered in moisture, his hair was scattered behind his back, his glasses were missing, and his hands were tightly hugged to his chest with a shy look. Seeing Hannah's cute appearance, Chen Yu decided not to hesitate, stepped forward to hug Hannah, and whispered in Hannah's ear, "Hannah, I love you." Ideographic period. Hannah, who heard Chen Yu's confession, froze for a moment, and then began to respond gently. The two of them had fewer and fewer clothes, and after that, in a word, cough. That's it. The next morning, Chen Yu, who woke up, looked at Hannah, who was still asleep, kissed Hannah lovingly, got up and began to wash, and walked downstairs to the living room after finishing. I saw that my parents and sister were already having breakfast there. Chen Shang Wang Yang, who saw Chen Yu coming down, showed a smile to Chen Yu, and Chen Yu was a little embarrassed to see it. And her younger sister Chen Wen said to Chen Yu with a dissatisfied look, "Brother, did you bully sister Hannah last night? I heard it all," and she cried out in pain. Quote, Chen Yu, quote, Chen Shang, quote, Wang Yang, quote. After eating, Chen Yu took the plate and filled it with some food, and then took a cup of drink and went back to the room. Waking up Hannah, watching her in infinite shame, after eating breakfast, they went downstairs together to cheerfully start a family routine with their families. Every day after that, Chen Yu and Hannah stuck to you Nong, my Nong, like two conjoined babies, looking at her sister Chen Wen a little jealous. Just when this kind of leisurely day passed, Chen Yu couldn't stop. Finally, school started. On the first day of school, Chen Yu took Hannah, and the two walked into Midtown High School together, and coincidentally were assigned to a class, and in this class, there was Pete Parker. The sweet looks of Chen Yu and Hannah naturally attracted everyone's attention. Especially Hannah's former classmates found that this girl, who usually didn't pay attention at all, was also timid and didn't like to talk, actually had a boyfriend. This surprised them considerably. And after paying attention to the two of them, some of Hannah's former classmates found that Hannah was actually quite cute, which made some boys show regretful expressions for a while. And Gwen of the next class blessed Hannah after knowing that Hannah had a boyfriend, and the two were very affectionate, and ran to get to know Chen Yu. After Chen Yu knew that Gwen was Hannah's friend, he also made friends with Gwen very politely. Without mentioning what others think, Chen Yu broke off the idea of contacting Pete Parker after having Hannah. It's too late to fall in love. No matter what this little spider does, it's not as good as me anyway. That's what Chen Yu thought. And after teaching a few classmates who saw Chen Yu bully and were yellow people who came to provoke, Chen Yu domineeringly changed his position with Hannah, and lived a good campus life like this. Time always flies by, and in the days when Pete Parker is bullied from time to time, Tony finally leaves for Afghanistan. Nothing happened in those 2 months. So much so that Chen Yu almost forgot that these plots were about to start in the happy days, showing affection with Hannah every day, hugging and eating in the cafeteria, etc., made the classmates around Chen Yu angry, but couldn't help Chen Yu. In their eyes, this master has not spoken to anyone other than Hannah, and he is also very capable of fighting, and 4 or 5 people to bully Chen Yu together are only flattened, and what kind of Chinese kung fu is it? It's a day, a husky. This Saturday is off, and the two are ready to go to Hannah's house for dinner after shopping. The black metal plate given by Tony rang. This metal plate Chen Yu has always carried. After all, Chen Yu knew that Tony's accident was also during this time. After taking out the metal plate and pressing the button, he heard Tony's deep voice. Chen Yu, I am in danger, come and save me. The voice was small, and it was obviously not convenient for Tony to speak there. Well, okay, I'll leave right away, you wait patiently, I'll be there in a moment. Chen Yu knew that Tony was probably caught in the cave of the terrorist, and a hole had been opened in his chest. Wait a minute, are you sure you'll get us out in the hail of bullets? These two of us, me and a friend, we were arrested by terrorists, there were a lot of them, and they were very firepower. After Chen Yu finished speaking, Tony's voice came from the horse. Chen Yu could hear that Tony was very bad now, but still said, no, I can only guarantee my own safety, and I can kill the enemy within 10 minutes, but I can't guarantee your absolute safety, so you have to find a way to protect yourself. Quote. What Chen Yu said was true. Chen Yu could dodge bullets and other attacks, but if too many people shot at them, Chen Yu could not guarantee Tony's safety unless he shot Tony away. But Chen Yu knows from the movie that the cave where Tony and them are located is more winding, and there is no possibility for Chen Yu to shoot Tony. Of course, Chen Yu can also directly enter the terrorist base, but there is no guarantee that those terrorists will not shoot Tony when Chen Yu kills him. So Chen Yu wanted Tony to build an armor to protect himself like the original. Then you wait for me for a week, and I'll protect myself. And you'd better come over first, we're in a cave, it's deeper, I'm afraid that the terrorists will kill me in less than a week, so you come first, if I haven't done a good job of protecting the terrorists to kill me, then only you will kill me immediately. Also, if you need something, you can ask my assistant Pepper to take it, if Pepper doesn't believe it, I'll call again in half an hour, you just let her answer, she should be at my house, Tony said after thinking about it. Got it, I'll go find your assistant now. Chen Yu responded. After speaking, Chen Yu thought for a while, and then said to Hannah next to him, Hannah, Tony Stark has an accident, I'm going to save him. It takes a week, I'm going home now and ask my dad to help me ask for school leave, this week you can only live by yourself, but I'll be fine, don't worry about me, you know. Quote. Is it going to take a week for so long? Then I miss you, can I call you? Hannah quickly asked when she heard that it would take a week. It's better not to, in case the enemy has a signal to intercept or something, it's troublesome, I don't understand these high-tech things, but it's okay to be careful. Chen Yu said. Chen Yu often watches movies and is intercepted on a phone call, and the location is also found out of powerful technology. Although terrorists don't necessarily exist, it's okay to be careful, isn't it? After all, this is a real world. After saying goodbye to Hannah, Chen Yu quickly went home to say hello to his parents and then appeared at Tony Stark's house, just walked in the door and saw Pepper, who had met 2 months ago, sitting haggard on the sofa, looking at Chen Yu in surprise after seeing Chen Yu and asking out loud. If I'm not mistaken, you're Chen Yu, right? Is there something to do here? Tony is not there. Ah, I know, I came to you, Tony called me, he will call me in half an hour, you wait a minute. Chen Yu was also not verbose, and directly stated the purpose. Pepper looked at Chen Yu incredulously after hearing this, and then said in surprise, really? Is Tony alive? Great, so what did he call you for? Quote. Tony had an accident, he was caught by terrorists, let me go and rescue him, I came here to let you help me prepare some supplies. Oh my god, Tony is caught, then I will quickly contact Rod and ask him to rescue Tony. Pepper hears that Tony has been arrested, and is shocked to inform Tony's friend in the military, Colonel Rod. Don't, when your aircraft cannons hit, they will definitely kill Tony. Don't worry, Tony and I have plans, and Tony will call him later to tell you. Chen Yu replied helplessly. Ooh, okay, I'll wait for Tony to call. Pepper reacted at this time and hurriedly said. After a while, Tony's call came over, and he didn't know how to say it to Pepper, and after hanging up the call, he ran to Chen Yu and said. It's really bothering you, you need something to tell me, I will ask you immediately, please you must save Tony. Don't worry, this is what I should do. After that, Chen Yu asked Pepper for a tent, some alcohol gauze, and some dry food and set off. And Chen Yu was faintly excited. Wow, lurking around the target to protect the target Ayuki, or stay for a week Ayuki, it's just an agent mission or something, it's so cool. Single quote. 4 days later, Afghanistan. Chen Yu was sitting at the entrance of a cave in his battle uniform, looking at the endless yellow desert outside, and couldn't laugh. Grass, you have to stay for 3 days, this TM actually has to stay for 3 days, how to break, how can this TM break? I think Hannah, I want to take a bath, I want to eat ice cream, and I want Hannah to feed me. Chen Yu has been here for 4 days, and although Chen Yu has the ability to return home within an hour, after all, he still has to take Tony's life seriously. This round trip takes 2 hours, what if Tony is killed in just 2 hours? The cave where Chen Yu was located was not far from Stark, and even Chen Yu could open 2 caves if he thought about it, but when Chen Yu expressed this idea to Tony, he was stopped by Tony. Just kidding, open such a big movement in the cave, and the kid does not understand geological exploration, what to do if the hole collapses. The geology here is not strong. Unless there is really no way. So the sad Chen Yu could only wait like this. At this time, what kind of agent and what task has long been thrown by Chen Yu to the country of Java? Finally, at noon on the 7th day, Tony told Chen Yu that he could do it. Tony, they were almost ready. Let Chen Yu start. 10 minutes later, Chen Yu silently stood up, took off his gloves, touched a handful of bitter tears on his face, and set off. 5 minutes later, Chen Yu stood on a sand dune and looked at the terrorist base below, ready to wait for Tony to be rescued and shoot Tony on this dune, and then watched Chen Yu give this base a big move and pretend to be forced. Chen Yu did not dare to throw a big move when he did not rescue people, for fear that the cave would collapse and bury Tony and them. When Chen Yu was in a daze while looking at the time, the metal plate rang again, and he received Tony's anxious voice from inside the phone. Start in advance, start now, quickly, like in the plan, you block the entrance of the hole, attract the enemy's fire and shoot us away when we come out. You don't care about the hole, Ethan, don't go. Chen Yu will go to attract fire immediately, we still have time. Hearing Tony's words, Chen Yu knew that Tony and they might have been discovered by terrorists, that Tony was making armor and was about to do something to Tony. So he didn't hesitate, and saw the cave and teleported to the entrance of the cave. Seeing that suddenly a strangely dressed and a little cute teenager suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave, the terrorists here were shocked, and then shot at Chen Yu, shouting at the walkie-talkie while shooting at words that Chen Yu couldn't understand. Seeing this, Chen Yu did not panic, and with his domineering appearance, he flashed slightly left and right, and kept waving at the surrounding terrorists. The surrounding terrorists all vomited blood and fell down in an inexplicable way. Everyone had a palm-sized bear paw print on their chest deeply printed on it, and the bones on their chest were dented. Just when Chen Yu finished solving these terrorists around him and wondering whether to go in to meet Tony, he suddenly sensed that there were many terrorists coming from the outside to support. Faced with this situation, Chen Yu took a deep breath, tied his left and right feet apart into horse steps, and raised his hands, front and back, a bit like sumo wrestling. Then he slowly waited for the enemy to appear in his field of vision. After a while, a large wave of terrorists appeared in Chen Yu's field of vision. Seeing this, Chen Yu did not hesitate and launched an attack. Push the pressure cannon, saw Chen Yu shout, and then his hands kept quickly launching the pressure cannon forward one after the other. I saw countless pale white bear paw balls compressed into air shooting around, and countless terrorists who had just seen Chen Yu and didn't know what happened fell like this, and then one after another, terrorists came up and fell. Chen Yu kept firing pressure cannons as if he was playing a game to land on the beach, and for a while, the surrounding explosions sounded into a circle. After a while, when he saw that no more terrorists dared to come, Chen Yu stopped the release of the pressure cannon and stood up. As soon as he stood up, he stretched out his right hand and bounced back a bullet that was aimed at him, and a scream sounded in the distance. Sniper, rub, bad, tanks and artillery are coming. Didn't appear in the movie. Tony, why haven't they come out yet? Just when Chen Yu sensed that the situation was not good through seeing and smelling domineering, Tony in the cave finally arrived belatedly. Chen Yu, how is the situation now? Ethan has been shot in the thigh, so I need to bandage it quickly. I saw Tony wearing a bulky armor and supporting a weak and somewhat old middle-aged man with one hand, and slowly walked out. When he saw Chen Yu, he shouted happily. It's okay, I killed a group of terrorists, but their large force immediately came to support. I will first send you to a sand dune opposite, where I prepared gauze alcohol. Chen Yu said after seeing Tony come out and breathe a sigh of relief. Tony heard that there was no danger around him for the time being, and quickly said to Chen Yu, "Okay, you come, hurry up." Quote. Seeing this, Chen Yu didn't say much, walked over and gave them a chance to send them to the sand dunes where Chen Yu was standing before the action, and then gave himself a moment and followed them. Groggily feeling the wind flying around him and then smashing into the sand, Tony slowly stood up, shook his head and said, "Is this what it feels like to be ejected? I'm an ordinary person. Chen Yu should have slowed down, this feels really bad." Single quote. Ethan, who flew with him, felt even worse. "Although I had known in the cave that I would be photographed in the cave, I still felt that I was thoroughly affected when I really experienced this feeling." And he was shot in the leg and almost didn't faint. After Tony picked up Ethan, he saw the brush, and Chen Yu also appeared. Then he didn't care about Chen Yu, and began to pick up the gauze on the ground next to him and bandage Ethan. Ethan next to him also began to thank Chen Yu for saving his life. "Chen Yu, why are you sending us back?" Tony, who had bandaged Ethan, completely relaxed, and then looked at Chen Yu and asked. Chen Yu looked at his anxious look and knew that he wanted to go back quickly, so he said, "You give me a phone number, I will call for help after I fly out of here. After all, you can't afford to shoot, otherwise I will send you back directly." Quote. "Okay, you go, what about us? Is it waiting for you here?" After knowing Chen Yu's plan, Tony said, and then thought of his safety and asked. "It's safe here, I just made a big fuss at their place. This group of terrorists will definitely go to their base to check first. I'll come back after the call and wait for their support to come to them." "A big one, I'll call for support first," Chen Yu said lightly and disappeared. Seeing this, Rao as Ethan, who has already been filmed once, or feels a little incredible. Is this a superpower? "Tony, this friend of yours is too young, isn't he?" "Well, he's just a high school student." "It's incredible," Ethan sighed. After a while, Chen Yu came back and told Tony that support had been called, and then observed the terrorist base below. "I saw a large number of terrorists running to the place just now to check, and let out a crazy roar, and several tanks and vehicles also drove in." Seeing this, Chen Yu, who felt that the timing was about the same, stood up and opened his hands upwards in the puzzled eyes of Tony and Ethan. The palms of the hands began to make a non-stop, poof, sound. Tony and Ethan, who were still inexplicable, looked away from Chen Yu and looked up with Chen Yu's hand, and after seeing the situation above, they were all frightened. I saw that the air within 100 meters above Chen Yu's head began to slowly compress, turning from invisible to faint white and then to dark white, with a little red color of the meatball in Chen Yu's palm. Are you making a super bomb? Can you control so much air compression? In case it explodes in your hands we will be finished," Tony said with a pale face. Ethan next to him was also scared and turned blue. Ignoring Tony's words, Chen Yu continued to compress the air, and slowly, the 100-meter diameter bear's paw-shaped air was compressed smaller and smaller. Until it was compressed to the size of a palm, it was pressed into Chen Yu's hands and rubbed hard. Until Chen Yu felt that it was almost the same, he looked at the terrorist base below indifferently, and his hands slowly stretched out and let go. Chen Yu, who had just let go of his hand, launched the meatball on his palm, and the slap-sized bear paw-shaped bomb was ejected, and quickly flew towards the terrorist base below. During the flight, it began to slowly tremble and become larger, and when it reached the terrorists, it became 2 meters in size, and then a dazzling white light flashed, and when these terrorists did not have time to react, they completely exploded with a bang. Looking at the apocalyptic scene below, the powerful hurricane blew Tony's Ethan unable to open his eyes. When everything was over, Tony and Ethan looked at the huge crater left by the explosion below, looked at each other, and swallowed. At the same time, Tony also decided that he must make good friends with this cute high school student. After waiting for 4 hours, Tony finally saw the helicopter that had come to pick him up. Tony waved his coat happily at the plane as if he had been reborn. Ethan next to him also smiled happily. As for Chen Yu, he used his ability to go home after seeing the domineering sensing of the helicopter. It was already noon when she returned home, and Chen Yumaimai, who was just in time to eat, took a shower and changed her clothes, and began to gobble up 3 bowls of rice in the stunned expressions of her family. After Chen Yu, who was full of food and drink, said hello to his father, he couldn't wait to take a taxi and went to Hannah's house. Chen Yu, who did not call Hannah, knocked on the door of Hannah's house after arriving, and then gave Hannah a big hug in Hannah's surprised eyes and kissed Hannah's mouth hard. Because Chen Yu, who left last week 6, passed a week, it was still week 6. I didn't have to go to class to start warming up with Hannah, and after dinner, I went shopping and drinking coffee. The next day, Chen Yu and Hannah kissed me, and I went downstairs for dinner, and when I got downstairs, I saw Chen Yu's father Chen Shang watching the news, and after seeing Chen Yu, he quickly called Chen Yu over and then pointed to the news on TV and said, "Xiao Yu, you see that Tony Stark seems to have an accident. He wants to close the weapons research department of their company. He is a weapons company, what can he do without selling weapons?" Chen Shang looked at Chen Yu and found that he looked indifferent before he said again, "Xiao Yu, don't you own 3% of Stark's shares? Hurry up, their company's stock will definitely fall wildly soon." Chen Shang is not a force, and when others help him, he asked his son to fall into the well. But it is true that this 3% of stocks is a large number. If Stark Industries' stock falls too much, then his son Chen Yu will really lose a lot. Chen Yu knew his father's thoughts, so he comforted, "Dad, don't worry, I know in my heart, I am also ready to take advantage of the decline in Stark Company's shares, and even some small shareholders will buy a large number of shares when they can't resist selling shares." Quote, "What, are you still ready to acquire?" Chen Shang looked at his son without knowing what he thought. "Dad, don't worry, Stark has already told me that he is now going to make a strong transition to energy, and it is high-end clean energy. I have seen the finished product, and I am very confident that their company will be better than before." Seeing that Chen Shang was puzzled, Chen Yu explained to his father, "Alas, let it be, but Dad believes in you. My son can make so much money, but it's all gone, and your mother and I can still afford it. But before you run out of money, go out and buy a sweet. You and Hannah are so tired that I can't stand it with your mother and your sister." Quote. Chen Shang knew that his son had his own ideas, and did not say much, but comforted him like a joke and asked him to buy a house. Because in the hearts of the people, this house is the root, and there must be a house. When Chen Yu heard his father say this, he was right to think about it. Chen Yu and Hannah knew the essence of food for a while, and often did indescribable things in the room. It made the sister next door Chen Wen's resentment very big. Now when I heard my father Chen Shang say this, I was immediately very moved. Looking up at Hannah with an inquiring look. And Hannah heard Chen Shang say that she and Chen Yu were too swaggering, and suddenly blushed very shyly and lowered her head. After seeing Chen Yu's inquiring eyes on her, he immediately had a, "You are in charge of everything," look. Chen Shang, who was about to say a few more words to his son, was speechless when he saw Chen Yu, who had begun to make eye contact with his daughter-in-law before saying 2 words. This he can still live happily, no. In his heart, he was even sure to let Chen Yu get out as soon as possible. Then he began to urge Chen Yu to look at the house. Wang Yang heard that Chen Yu wanted to buy a house, and he was also very interested and came up with an idea. But Chen Yu had his own plans. Chen Yu is ready to hand over the purchase of the house to the almighty Stark assistant Pepper, but of course, he can't go directly to Pepper. So decided to meet Stark. At night, Chen Yu, who had fought with Hannah, saw Hannah sleep tiredly. So he got up and changed into his uniform and ran to see Tony. When I arrived at the door and saw the open door, I did not hesitate and walked in with my feet up. Tony, who had long known through Jarvis that Chen Yu was coming, called Ethan and came to the living room from the basement together. And Pepper also didn't rest in the living room, so he stood up together to welcome Chen Yu's arrival. "Hello, our baby bear, what wind blew you to me?" As soon as Chen Yu entered the door, Tony went up very enthusiastically to give him a hug, but he avoided him. Then Pepper and Ethan also came over to thank Chen Yu one after another. Ethan is grateful to Chen Yu for saving his life, while Pepper is grateful to Chen Yu for saving Tony's life. Chen Yu, who did not speak, just nodded to them, walked to the sofa and sat down, and said softly, "Tony, I'm here to ask you to do me a favor. My baby bear, your business is mine, you just say." Tony boldly agreed. Tony, who has long decided to have a good relationship with Chen Yu, of course, will not refuse. Anyway, he generally does not have to go out by himself, and his subordinates will get it. Chen Yu saw that Ethan and Pepper next to him also showed a very curious look, and they were a little speechless. "Tony, That's right, I got a girlfriend. Chen Yu was silent for a moment before saying softly. Congratulations, baby bear, and then what? It won't be for me to help you get your daughter, oh. Just as Tony was running the train with his mouth full, he was kicked by Pepper before reacting. A little embarrassed to say. Ahem, baby bear, you go on. But it's a shame to find a regular girlfriend so early, you give up the whole forest. Quote. Hearing Tony's previous words, the corners of Chen Yu's eyes twitched, but he didn't say anything. Chen Yu knew that Tony was not malicious, but his mouth did not open the door. I got a girlfriend, and then my parents thought we were too noisy and asked me to buy a house and move out. But I didn't understand this, and I thought, Tony, you have an all-powerful Miss Pepper, so I came to you. Chen Yu said after looking at Tony and then at Pepper. Tony knew it was a trivial matter as soon as he heard it, and immediately said, I see, Pepper, you will do this tomorrow first. Quote. Pepper heard Tony's order and immediately said, no problem, leave it to me. I don't know, Chen Yu, do you have any requirements for the house? Ah, my girlfriend and I both attend Midtown High School, so it's best to be close to school, but not next to it. What I hope is that I can walk to school with my girlfriend every day, and I can go home after school. Chen Yu said his requirements for the location of the house. After hearing Chen Yu's request, the corner of Tony's eyes twitched. Ethan looked at Chen Yu with a kind smile. Pepper, on the other hand, showed an envious expression and glared at Tony. Tony, who felt Pepper's gaze, stared down at the coffee in front of him. A drop of cold sweat left from his forehead. What about the price? How much price do you need for a house? Suite or villa? Want a garden? Pepper asked, continuing to do his job seriously. Yes, I don't really understand this. Hundreds of thousands of houses will do, right? After all, it's just me and Hannah. Chen Yu said a little uncertainly. Seeing this, Tony interrupted the conversation between Chen Yu and Pepper and said to Pepper, well, how can I get my lifesaver to pay? Pepper, you go to choose a medium villa tomorrow, I will pay for it, and give it to the baby bear after everything is done. So be it. Pepper didn't think it was a big deal when he heard Tony say this, and immediately said, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Quote. After thinking for a while, Chen Yu did not refuse, so he settled on it. After finishing the incident, Chen Yu wanted to go back to sleep, so he stood up and prepared to leave, but was stopped by Tony. Baby bear, don't be in such a hurry to go. Come, follow me to the basement and I'll show you something. Tony knew Chen Yu's character and knew that Chen Yu didn't talk much, and he would disappear as soon as the matter was done, so he quickly stopped Chen Yu. Anyway, Chen Yu, who was not in a hurry, followed Tony and Ethan to the basement, while Pepper was ready to rest. As soon as he arrived in the basement, Chen Yu was first attracted by various high-tech instruments, screens, and those limited-edition luxury cars, and Chen Yu decided to wait until he became an adult and got his driver's license, and then see if he could ask Tony for one. In general, Tony's basement is full of high-tech atmosphere. Chen Yu, who pretended to be calm, walked behind, but his uncalm appearance was indeed seen clearly by Tony and Ethan. So Tony said to Chen Yu proudly, how about it, baby bear, these are the things that a man should have, right? But right away you'll see something that drives men all over the world crazy. Quote. Saying that, Tony led Chen Yu to the two pairs of steel armor hanging on. One is already colored, just like the movie Chen Yu watched in his previous life, gold and red. The other pair has not yet been colored, and still maintains metallic silver armor. Tony, who saw Chen Yu staring directly at the steel armor, smiled. So he immediately put on the colored armor in front of Chen Yu. To be honest, watching the process of Tony wearing armor, Chen Yu basically knelt down to watch it. Interested friends can go to the movie to review. After Tony really put on the armor for the first time, he stood there and started the scene of armor debugging. Nima, after seeing several robotic arms next to him assemble the armor for Tony, Tony stood there and asked Jarvis to debug various functions. The ailerons, shoulders, arms, back, and legs are constantly being finely adjusted. At this moment, Chen Yu was really envious. Men, sports cars, swords, guns, mechs. These are all things that can hook a man's blood. Tony, who had finished debugging the steel armor, looked at Chen Yu, who looked envious next to him, and said frivolously, how's it going, baby bear? Very handsome and powerful. It was rare to hear the praise of the boy who had been stiff-faced. Tony was also very happy. So, can my steel armor keep me safe? Chen Yu saw Tony's appearance, although he wanted to fight Tony, but Tony who had the steel armor was indeed in a strong position, standing on the same line as Chen Yu. Although Chen Yu has 100 ways to kill Tony, if Tony is made to wear armor and Chen Yu's real knife and gun, Chen Yu really had a feeling that he couldn't start. Anyone who has seen Marvel movies knows that there are many scenes of superheroes fighting each other, but there are few who can really hurt each other. Everyone was fighting desperately, and after destroying a large piece of public property, the two people who fought did nothing, leaving a little nosebleed and a little abrasion as the sky. If Chen Yu fights with Iron Man, Chen Yu estimates that most of his pressure cannons or even giant bear impacts will not be able to kill Tony. Of course, Chen Yu can also shoot Tony infinitely, but it should still not hurt Tony. Thinking of this, Chen Yu felt that there were still too few means of attack. Don't say that the heroes in Marvel have the ability to be beaten first class. Chen Yu began to think of other heroes, but as a result, in addition to Black Widow, Hawkeye and Falcon, it is estimated that Chen Yu may not necessarily fight to death when he really fights. Captain America is a bit weak, but TMD has a universal shield. Chen Yu still doesn't know who shot whom he shot on that shield. And the Panther is even more vibranium directly all over the body. How to kill? Can only shoot fly. Spider-Man may have a chance to kill Chen Yu with all his strength, but this product has a spider sense. Not easy to photograph. And the evil god Loki, the Thor god Thor, and the Hulk Hank, are more forbidden than one. Can only shoot fly. Then there are several beings with special abilities. Ant-Man can be big or small. There is no threat in front of Chen Yu, who has seen and heard domineering, and should be able to kill. Fast Silver, although the speed is fast, but it is also restrained by the domineering and domineering of sight. There are also chances to kill, but not necessarily. And the two perverts of Scarlet Witch Wanda, and Vision, to be honest, facing these two, Chen Yu was a little longing. Wanda's abilities he didn't understand much. Anyway, it can control the mind and can also remotely override objects. As for Vision, the top of the head can emit lasers like Erlang God. The body is also very strong, can fly, and most importantly, can blur. Hey, it can be blurred. Whether it was an elementalization like the nature system in One Piece, or a spatial skill like Obito in the Hokage, these Chen Yu were not sure. Not to mention Chen Yu's cranky here, he was determined to strengthen his attack capability. Over there, Tony saw that Chen Yu recognized his strength and spoke. Baby Bear, let's form an alliance. Suddenly, Tony said to Chen Yu. Faced with Tony's sudden invitation, Chen Yu was there for a while. Seeing that Chen Yulang didn't answer there, Tony thought he was hesitating, and quickly asked, what's wrong? Baby Bear, don't want to. Quote. It's not unwilling, but why did you suddenly think of finding an alliance with me? Aren't we inherently collaborative? Ideographic period. Chen Yu, who reacted, asked strangely. Seeing that Chen Yu was not unwilling, Tony immediately put down his heart and said, cooperation is cooperation, alliance is alliance, and our alliance is equivalent to me and you becoming friends and then helping each other. With my current strength, I should be able to ally with you and be friends, right? Quote. After speaking, seeing that Chen Yu did not answer, he added, and I like you more, although you are young, you are very stable and reliable. Quote. Chen Yu slowly walked to the basement window, opened the window, and left a sentence to Tony. You need a battle to prove yourself. After the battle, I will be your ally. Then Chen Yu disappeared. Tony looked at the disappeared Chen Yu and reacted for a long time. With a smile on his face, he whispered, what an uncute baby bear. Quote. Tony knew that Chen Yu didn't want him to get along with Chen Yu in a lowly posture in the alliance, so he said this to Tony. When he returned home, Chen Yu washed up and ran to the bed to lie down, exposing the sleeping Hannah in his arms and closing his eyes. And after Hannah sniffled, she took Chen Yu's arm in her arms with a confused backhand, rubbed it a few times, and then fell asleep. Chen Yu, who closed his eyes, did not fall asleep immediately, but kept shouting in his heart, I really want to promise him right away. His uncles, I really want to. Single quote. In fact, at that time, Chen Yu wanted to agree to Tony immediately. But when Chen Yu saw Tony's enthusiastic eyes on him, he felt that it was very unlike Tony, and after thinking about it, he understood. Tony has not shown his mocking side when he gets along with Chen Yu, in fact, because he has seen Chen Yu strong. Although he has steel armor this time, Tony has not actually fought and is not quite sure of the combat effectiveness of the armor. But Chen Yu knew how powerful the steel armor was, so he said those words to Tony. Let Tony treat Chen Yu as a friend sincerely. Anyway, sooner or later Tony will know the power of steel armor, won't he? And Chen Yu also had some ideas about his increased attack power, and planned to start preparing tomorrow. After getting up the next day, Chen Yu called Tony and told Tony to help prepare something. Then after waking up Hannah, he and Hannah ran outside to play. At noon, Pepper called and told Chen Yu that he could go to receive the house. So soon, Chen Yu was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Buy a house, hey. Make no mistake, in the great celestial empire, there is no errand to go through the formalities for the month. Do you mean to say that you are buying a house? And Pepper, this. I only learned about things in the middle of the night last night, and I started to do it this morning, and I can live at noon. Well, it's so fast. I contacted a villa this morning that was ready to go out immediately, and then asked people to go through the procedures. I went to find someone to move to clean and change furniture, and now I can come and live. Come on, I'll wait for you. The address is XXX. Pepper obviously felt a little powerful and said proudly. Well, okay, I'll come right away. Pepper, you're amazing. When I come, I'll introduce my girlfriend to you by the way. After that, Chen Yu pulled Hannah to take a taxi and drove to his destination. Arrive at your destination. After getting off the bus, Chen Yu found that this was a villa community about 20 minutes away from Lizong City High School. After walking in, he saw Pepper waiting for Chen Yu outside the door of a white villa. Chen Yu quickly pulled Hannah over to thank the hero, and introduced Hannah to Pepper. After a while, Pepper and Hannah had a hot chat. Several people looked at the house while Hannah learned some experience from Pepper in dealing with things. Chen Yu's heart and liver trembled. Don't, sister, don't make Hannah a strong woman. I want the little bird, and I want Hannah, who can't be sociable. Single quote. Chen Yu and Hannah were very satisfied with the house after visiting the house and said that they would move in immediately. Hee, okay, I'll leave the moving company people here for the two of you after I leave, and they will help you move. Pepper liked Hannah very much and said to Chen Yu with a smile. After looking at the house, Pepper had something to go. After handing over the house procedures and keys to Chen Yu, he got into the car. However, after the car started, Pepper rolled down the window and said to Chen Yu, Hannah is such a gentle and lovely good girl, don't bully her. It's lucky to find her. After saying that, he left the dust. But Pepper also knows that a girl like Hannah can meet a good man like Chen Yu who does not spend his heart, does not mess around, and has a single-minded heart. How is it not Hannah's luck? After Pepper left, Chen Yu and Hannah also took the moving company soldiers to the two people's homes separately and began to move. Chen Xiong and Wang Yang, who were ready to move away when they returned home and saw Chen Yu, were very surprised, and they were relieved to learn that Tony Stark helped them. This is the case in the United States, where you can do anything quickly if you have money. Otherwise, everything is slow. Chen Yu and Hannah started their separate moving journeys, and this time they were busy until dusk. After taking a shower, the two sat on the sofa in the hall and leaned together to watch horror movies. Hannah feels very happy at the moment, as if she has entered the state of husband and wife in advance. Hannah, how about inviting your mother and brother over tomorrow, and my mom and sister, and having a meal together? Chen Yu saw Hannah next to him with a happy face, and his heart moved, and he said. When Hannah heard Chen Yu's words, she didn't react, just said softly, okay, you can arrange everything. Quote. So, tomorrow we'll tell everyone how about our two engagements. Chen Yu looked at Hannah and said. At this moment, Hannah, who heard Chen Yu's words, turned her head and looked at Chen Yu in disbelief. Tears of happiness were almost falling. At this time, Chen Yu gently hugged Hannah and said, I said earlier, as long as you don't dislike me, I will definitely not leave you. We will get married when we both turn 18. Quote. Aha, well, I listened to you all. Hannah, who was crying with joy, leaned her head on Chen Yu's shoulder and whispered. The uniform marriage law for marriage in the United States is 18 years old, but it varies from state to state, and some states require men to be 21 years old. Some states are also 18 years old. But states like New Jersey and Washington allow men over the age of 14 to marry women over the age of 12. That's a bit beyond imagination. According to the above, although if marriage laws in states such as New Jersey and Washington are passed, Chen Yu and Hannah can get married immediately. But Chen Yu is still ready to get engaged first and wait until he is 18 years old to get married. The current Chen Yu is 17 years old, and Hannah is 2 months old and 17 years old. That is, wait more than a year, less than 2 years, and they can get married. Although most of the facts in his previous life told Chen Yu that getting married early did not end well. After a long time, you may get tired and you may get bored with your other half's personality. But looking at Hannah, who was next to her with tears, Chen Yu bounced all these with meatballs. Chen Yu had already chosen Hannah. No regrets. Early the next morning, Chen Yu, who got up early to prepare for the family dinner, received a call from Tony, telling him that things were ready and asking him to come over for testing. After thinking for a while, Chen Yu decided to use his ability to quickly rush over to the test and then rush back. Although it is said that it is possible to be detected in broad daylight, as long as you wear a mask. So after talking to Hannah, who was also busy, he changed his clothes, put on a mask and went out. New York in the morning is busy, and I see that the streets are full of hurried pedestrians and vehicles. But right here in New York, full of people, on top of a building. A person quickly went from standing on this building to standing in another building far away. I stood like this, without changing my posture. Such a strange picture was discovered in the distance by a man doing aerobic exercise on the top of a large dragon building. Just as the man looked at the figure getting closer and closer, his jaw was about to fall in shock. With a boom, the man who was standing suddenly stood in front of him. The man who reacted was so frightened that he fell to the ground and looked at Chen Yu in horror. Just as Chen Yu was about to continue his journey regardless of him, the shouts from the side made Chen Yu's body shake and he almost fell. Bear Man, you are Bear Man. The Bear Man who solved 2 monsters on Broadway. Chen Yu turned his head and found that the voice came from the frightened man. At this time, the man was staring at him with a look of surprise. Your sister Shang, call me Brother Shang. Chen Yu roared angrily. It was the day after Chen Yu shot the Hulk that day, and Chen Yu knew the title people gave him from the news. Bear Man, this is what everyone gives this mysterious, powerful, and very cute dress. The title of superhero boy who loves bears is everywhere. But Chen Yu never acknowledged the name. Because of this name, Chen Yu was laughed at by Hannah many times. Although Hannah finds the name cute and likes it. But Chen Yu just didn't admit it. He had an idea. There's still a chance, there's a chance. When the Avengers are established and the Battle of New York is over, I will take this opportunity to think of a handsome title in advance and spread it. Single quote. This is Chen Yu's idea. After the roar, he looked at the man who was a little blinded. Chen Yu sensed his gaffe. Leave him alone. The ability to start and continue to catch up on the road. One might ask, why not just take a heavy shot and fly to Tony's house? Chen Yu said he was there to hone his skills. Fortunately, when facing the enemy in the future, you can quickly move around the enemy to launch an attack. And there are often helicopters flying around New York. It's not good if it hits it. Even if it didn't hit the plane, it hit the flowers and plants. The most important thing is that Chen Yu has an idea of a new ability, and he needs to feel the moment when he shoots people away, as long as he can grasp that moment. Came to Tony's house and went directly into the basement at Jarvis's reminder. Tony and Ethan were almost waiting there. Seeing Chen Yu's arrival, he hurriedly said, Baby Shang, I have prepared the titanium beads and all you asked me to prepare, as well as the 5-meter thick iron pier for testing. You can now go and test. Quote. I saw a plate on the table next to Tony, which contained some titanium alloy beads that were smaller than the glass beads that Chen Yu played with in his previous life, and a dozen titanium alloy awls that could be held in one hand and had sharp tapered tips. Well, I feel like my attack power is not enough lately, and I am ready to try a new method. This titanium alloy bead and all were the way Chen Yu thought of to enhance his attack power. Chen Yu felt that since the shock wave formed by bouncing off the air at high speed was useless for some superheroes in the future, wouldn't it be good to replace the air with something with other high hardness? So there is today's test. While his mind turned, Chen Yu walked to the plate, first picked up a titanium alloy bead, put it in his hand and looked at it, then turned his head to look at the iron pier placed not far in front. This large iron pier of the cube is 5 meters long, 5 meters wide and 5 meters high, which is just suitable for Chen Yu's test. Chen Yu believes that if even a 5-meter thick iron pier can be pierced, then whether it is Hulk or Thor, it should be able to penetrate them. Of course, these people are responsive. But that's enough, at least it's a threat to them, isn't it? Determined, Chen Yu pinched the bead and flicked it at the iron pier. While throwing out, the meatball ability in the palm of his hand is activated with full force. After a soft poof, Tony and Ethan, who were watching from the side, saw that there was an extra small hole in the big iron pier, and it was pierced from one end to the other. And there was also a small hole in the wall behind the big iron pier. Apparently the beads penetrated everything without pressure and disappeared. It's terrible, the ultimate in speed, but also the ultimate in strength. After Tony said this, he seemed to think of something, and said to Chen Yu again. You don't have to try that all, and you can use it as a killer app. The beads are a little small, and even if they penetrate people, they are not necessarily fatal, unless they hit the head. This all is an all with a diameter of 10 centimeters, a dozen is fatal, and the penetration is better than that of a bead, so let's be a killer. Quote. And my steel armor is not enough to see in front of you now. Tony sighed. Well, thank you Tony. Also, Tony, can you make me a dress like my dress and hat? The main thing is to be able to put the beads and all up. Quote. Chen Yu thought of temporarily making up for his lack of attack power. Now Chen Yu is very confident, and he has the ability to see and smell domineering and flesh ball fruit, both of which can be called a golden oil. In the future, in the Avengers, Chen Yu will definitely occupy an important position. And he was not satisfied, because he had a new understanding of his ability to shoot flying people 2 days ago, and he was only close to developing it. He can shoot people at great distances without hurting people. As long as this capability is successfully developed, then Chen Yu will definitely appear very important in the Avengers. With Chen Yu, he can quickly reach the battlefield, support others, and quickly retreat when he is defeated. In this way, Chen Yu can play an incredible strategic role even if he has no attack power. Don't worry, baby bear, I will make exactly the same according to the bear costume on your body. Tony rolled his eyes at Chen Yu. Then I'm leaving, I'm still fine. Saying that, Chen Yu was ready to go home. What can you do this Sunday? Spend less time with your girlfriend and you won't die, come and have a drink with us. As soon as Tony saw the man finish, he was leaving. The corner of his eye twitched. No, Hannah and I are going to meet both parents today. Then discuss my engagement to Hannah. Chen Yu also felt that he was a little excessive, so he explained. What, you're getting engaged? I didn't say much about the last time Pepper was here. You really can't do that. I've heard Pepper say that Hannah's little girl is kind, but you're too shallow to choose someone early. And you are so young, what kind of marriage? Quote. Tony still wants to wait for Chen Yu to come with Chen Yu when he is 18 years old. So he hurriedly persuaded. No, I've identified Hannah, I'm not you, playboy. Chen Yu was very disdainful of Tony's private life. Although a little envious. Tony, I support Chen Yu, a man with a family is complete, and you should also start a family. Speaking of which, Tony, I'm going to go home and take a look. Ethan, who had been smiling and looking at Chen Yu and Tony after he came, and had not spoken to Tony, suddenly turned to Tony. What, Ethan, you're going home. Also, you told me in the cave that you were going home when you came out. But your side of the house is very unpeaceful now. Tony was a little worried about Ethan. No matter what, I'm going back, that's my home, if I die, don't be sad, I'm just going to see my family. Ethan said with a smile. There is no fear of death. Well, I respect your choice. Tony saw Ethan insist and didn't say anything more. I wish you all the best. Chen Yu blessed Ethan and then turned on his ability and left. Not to mention that over there, Tony was busy arranging for Ethan to go home. After Chen Yu arrived home, he began to get busy with Hannah again. Know that noon is approaching meal time. Chen Yu and Hannah's family arrived at Chen Yu and Hannah's villa. The two families quickly chatted happily when they met, and they were very satisfied with each other's children. Hannah's brother, James Marks, also ran around the house with Chen Wen, who was 3 years younger than him. During the meal, Chen Yu told them about his engagement to Hannah. The parents on both sides did not object, and Hannah's mother cried with joy. So the two parties agreed to get engaged to Chen Yu and Hannah during the winter vacation a month and a half later. Then I spent the whole day in his happiness. For the next week, Chen Yu and Hannah happily held hands every day to go to school and show affection after school. It was Sunday again, and Chen Yu and Hannah, who had finished lunch, were thinking about where to go. Tony called suddenly. "Baby bear, Ethan, dead, I'm about to set off for my first battle, are you coming?" Tony's voice was low, tinged with anger. "Well, okay, you go first, I'll be there later." Chen Yu did not expect that he had rescued Ethan, but Ethan still inevitably died. Death, maybe Ethan chose a good destination for himself. Ethan knew his hometown was dangerous, but he still resolutely returned to the hometown where he was born and raised. Chen Yu only admired this. Chen Yu said to Hannah, "Put on his combat uniform and set off." At this time, Chen Yu's battle uniform was no longer the previous combat uniform. On the fourth day after asking Tony to help him last time, Tony asked Chen Yu to go to his house to get new clothes. The style of clothes has not changed, and it is still the cute bear outfit. It's just that the material is different, breathable and wear-resistant. And some hidden position design pockets, loaded with dozens of titanium alloy beads and 2 titanium alloy awls on the shoulder. When Chen Yu arrived, Tony had already started fighting, and Chen Yu stood silently on the roof of a house and watched Iron Man kill below. This is Ethan's hometown and where Ethan was killed. The group of terrorists who caught Tony last time killed here. Chen Yu knew that Tony was really angry. In fact, Tony is still good, as long as Tony recognizes the quarreling friends. Even if you talk to him and scold him, Tony will not be angry. On the contrary, sometimes Rod and Pepper lose their temper with Tony, and Tony is kind enough to persuade him. Although the general tantrums against Tony are Tony's own fault. What to put pigeons, do whatever you want, and so on. Chen Yu, who had truly seen the power of steel armor for the first time, couldn't help but be shocked even though he already knew that it was very powerful. It is worthy of being something that can turn an ordinary person into a superhero in an instant. No wonder Tony in Iron Man 2 said with certainty that this armor can prevent nuclear intimidation, and also inflated that he alone can maintain world peace. Chen Yu silently kept looking at Tony below, and when Tony was almost killed, he was ready to go back. But just as he was about to go back, he saw Tony flying in the air being shot down by a tank. So Chen Yu stopped his hand and did not leave immediately, because he knew that it was not over. Tony, who was knocked down, was a little on fire. It would have been the perfect first battle, and Tony had already scanned the baby bear he valued and was watching from the roof of a building. As a result, he was beaten down in disgrace. Tony, who got up, thought about it, and watched as the tank actually fired at him again. After turning around and dodging, he stretched out his right hand, and a high-precision small armor-piercing shell shot out of his hand. Then turn around and walk away without looking. After walking 2 steps, he scanned that there were many missiles he had developed nearby, Jellicoe. So angry that he flew into the air and began firing energy cannons at these missiles. Almost after destroying, a dashing turn flew away, and connected Chen Yu's phone. "Baby bear, you should have seen it, right?" Tony asked confidently and proudly after the battle. "Well, it's strong, and now I'm your ally. What about Ethan?" Quote. Hearing Chen Yu ask about Ethan, Tony was silent for a while. Ethan was cremated by the people of his hometown. This is fine, this is also Ethan's own choice. Quote. "And I have some things to deal with now. I heard that during this period when my company's stock plummeted, you started to buy a lot of money." "How many are there?" Tony asked. "It's 7%. There are some small shareholders on your company's side who can't stand it." Chen Yu replied. "Visionary. This time someone was dealing with me, and I already guessed who it was. I hope that person will not do anything to me again, otherwise I won't blame me for ignoring my feelings over the years. I'll give you 10% after I've eaten that man's share," Tony said confidently. And Tony is also ready to give Chen Yu 10% of the shares, so that Chen Yu has 17% of the shares of Stark Industries, which can be regarded as a major shareholder, which further strengthens the relationship between Chen Yu and Tony and makes the alliance more stable. Although 10% of the shares is a huge number, due to some circumstances, Tony himself cannot hold too much. He now has 43%, and it will become 68% after eating that person's shares. Other shareholders, as well as other conglomerates and nations in the United States, would not allow him to hold so many shares in this vast industrial empire alone. Well, I'm engaged in a month, and I'll send Pepper an invitation then. Chen Yu did not refuse that. He knew what Tony was thinking, so he said, "Okay, I'll definitely come then. Do you want to open a bachelor night, doctor?" Tony laughed. "No need, take care of yourself, be careful of Pepper's touch." After saying that, Chen Yu hung up and began to use his ability to go home. This time, Chen Yu is ready to try out a new ability that has been almost developed. Although it has been tried several times on small animals and has been successful, it has not been used in humans. Chen Yu relaxed his body, and then slapped his right hand heavily on himself, capturing the moment when his body was slapped while shooting. Then at this moment, the ability was activated again, and a stream of air that was ejected formed into a bear's paw-shaped hood covered Chen Yu. In Chen Yu's feeling, there was no tearing feeling of the body and air rubbing against the air before, and the speed was about 3 times faster than before. After a while, Chen Yu flew to the lawn of the courtyard of his villa. The landing was very light, but a bear paw print with a range of 3 meters appeared on the lawn. Chen Yu knew that by now, his move had been successful. Just practice a little more to reach the point where the heart moves spontaneously. According to previous experience, this will not take much time, a month is enough. Half a month later, one night, when Chen Yu was wearing a good combat suit and preparing to practice shooting people, he received another call from Tony. "Chen Yu, Ma, right away, come to the basement of my house right away to save me, I'm dying." Just answered the phone. Tony's weak voice sounded. "Well, here it is." 5 seconds later, Chen Yu appeared at Tony's house and smashed a hole in the wall of Tony's house. After Chen Yu came, he saw Tony sitting weakly on the ground, and the arc reactor on his chest was gone, and seeing Chen Yu coming so quickly, a look of surprise appeared in Tony's eyes. Then he pointed with difficulty to a glass-made reactor on the table. Seeing this, Chen Yu immediately picked up the reactor, smashed it on the ground, smashed the glass, and then took out the reactor for Tony to install. At this time, Colonel Roddy also ran in a hurry, and when he saw Tony like this, he thought it was Chen Yu's hand next to him, and it was a flying kick. Chen Yu did not fight back. Dodge left and right, just don't get hit. "Stop, Xiao Luo, Chen Yu is my friend, he saved me." Tony, who finally eased up, saw Roddy opening a bow left and right at Chen Yu and hurriedly shouted. Tony was not afraid that Chen Yu would be beaten, but was afraid that Luodi would shoot Luodi to the sky after provoking Chen Yu. "Thank goodness, Tony, you're okay. This kid, I'm really sorry, but you're so good, I can't hit you." Roddy was pleasantly surprised to see that Tony was okay. And after reacting, he apologized to Chen Yu. "It's okay, Tony, what the hell is going on?" After Chen Yu waved his hand at Roddy to signal that it was okay, he pretended to be curious and asked Tony. "It was Obadiah, he gave me the hand and snatched the reactor from my chest. Now there is danger on Pepper's side. Chen Yu, you go to protect Pepper first, and I will arrive later," Tony said anxiously, and walked over to the pile of robotic arms and began to put on steel armor. "Cool, I swear it's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life." Roddy, who saw Tony in armor next to him, muttered incredulously. "Tony, I can send you over, I have a breakthrough in my ability now, and I can shoot flying people without injury," Chen Yu said. "Really? Great. In this way, the power of the two of us is not as simple as 1 + 1. Then send me there. The location is 180 kilometers north of here." Quote. After Tony heard that Chen Yu could be sent away without injury, he immediately thought of the strategic significance, said excitedly. Heard Tony say that, Chen Yu did not hesitate, and waved at him after Tony put on his battle armor. Then a 3-meter-long bear's paw-shaped hole suddenly appeared in the ceiling, and Tony disappeared. What's the situation? What about Tony? Roddy was surprised to see Tony disappear. "I sent it away, then I'll take a look too. Saying that, without waiting for Roddy to react, the ability was activated and he left. When Chen Yu followed Tony, he found that Tony had already fought with Obadiah. And Pepper watched helplessly from the side. After seeing Chen Yu coming over, he quickly said to Chen Yu, go help Tony, that Obadiah is a bad person. Tony's kidnapping by terrorists was masterminded by Obadiah. Quote, Baby Bear, send Pepper away first, don't shoot, if I can't beat you, you will go on, Obadiah this fool, I will make him pay. Tony also said after seeing Chen Yu arrive. As soon as he finished speaking, he was stepped on the ground by Obadiah's steel suit and yelled at Tony, I have been helping you Tony for 30 years. As he spoke, he lifted Tony up and smashed him to the ground, then stepped on it again. I built this company from scratch, and no one wants to stand in my way. Especially you. Obadiah roared as he stomped on Tony's steel suit frantically. Send Pepper away, leave it to me here. Tony, who was once again lifted up and thrown out by Obadiah, stabilized his figure by spraying energy with both hands and feet, and flew in midair and said to Chen Yu. Good, improved. I've improved things a little bit myself, I'll show you later. Let me kill the woman you don't cherish first, and see if you regret losing it. After that, Obadiah rushed towards Pepper and punched. However, with Chen Yu by his side, how could he get his wish? Chen Yu flashed in an instant, appeared in front of the fist of Obadiah's suit, stretched out his right hand to block, and Obadiah was bounced and fell on the car behind. Impossible, what are you? The one who stood up roared in disbelief. Such an ordinary person can block the fist of his battle suit and beat himself away. Ignoring Obadiah's roar, after waving at Pepper to send Pepper away, he also came to himself, and appeared with Pepper on the roof of a not very tall 7-story building next to it, silently watching the battle below. Wow, Chen Yu, you were really powerful, although I heard Tony say it. Pepper saw Chen Yu lightly block the attack of the steel suit the size of Obadiah, and also got himself upstairs in an instant, and said in surprise. Thank you for the compliment, let's watch here, if Tony is in danger, I will strike. Chen Yu also likes Pepper because of Hannah's relationship. So he said. Well, then I'm relieved. Hearing that Chen Yu would make a move, Pepper turned his head to look at the battle below. The two men below fought fiercely, and Tony fell completely downwind, so he lured Obadiah to fly high with him. Then knocked Obadiah down after his steel suit froze. But he didn't have much energy himself. After stumbling to the roof where Chen Yu and Pepper were standing, Tony, who had just landed, opened his mask and began to take off his armor. I run out of energy, I have to take off my armor, otherwise I won't know how to go back later. Pepper, you're okay. Quote. It's okay, I'm fine, what about Obadiah? Pepper said after seeing that Tony was okay and sighed in relief. Obadiah should have solved it, right? I'm not sure, but it's better to get me back to charging first. Tony only knew that Obadiah had fallen from a height and wasn't sure if anything was wrong with Obadiah. Hey Tony, that's a good trick. Just as Tony was about to go back to recharge, Obadiah flew up from the side. Two large steel hands gripped Tony, who had only removed one palm part. Baby Bear, hurry up, there is no energy on my side. Tony was shocked and hurriedly called Chen Yu to make a move. Seeing that Tony was in danger, Chen Yu quickly took out a titanium alloy bead from his hand and threw it at Obadiah. As soon as the beads come off, they activate their abilities. In an instant, the beads penetrated the steel armor and disappeared after opening a hole in the center of Obadiah's eyebrows. And after Obadiah's death, his steel suit also stood motionless, standing in place. Obadiah died. Tony was silent for a while, went to open Obadiah's suit, got Obadiah off and put it on the ground, sighing softly. Thank you for today's matter, Baby Bear. I'm going to have something to do with Pepper right now and have time to thank you. Tony said to Chen Yu. Nodded. Chen Yu, who was about to leave, thought of something, turned to Tony and said, today's matter will definitely be photographed by the media, and when the time comes, I will definitely let you explain. If you want to admit something, remember the title I gave myself. Tyrant Bear. After saying that, Chen Yu's ability was activated, and he went home. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.